All right, it's 6:30. Let's go ahead and get started. Somebody like to lead the pledge for those who'd like to participate?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. I will call this meeting of the Nottingham Planning Board to order. It is May 13th, 2026, 6:30 p.m. at the Town Office Building, Meeting Room 1. I'm going to start off by going around and having each member introduce themselves.
Skip Sermon's alternate.
Andrew Lichtenwalder.
Drew Stevens, Chair.
Danny Arsenal, Vice Chair.
Adam Ryan, Select Board Rep.
Blair Haney, SRPC.
Tracy Stickney, Land Use Coordinator.
Glenn Griswold. Member. Alternate.
All seats skipped for Chris Evans and, or actually all seats skipped for Carrie because I don't think she's here today, right?
Right.
And I will seat Glenn for the open seat that's on the board. Okay, tonight we've got a couple of public hearings. The first is case 26007, site plan review for Precision Cut Lumber LLC, 123 Old Turnpike Road, application from Ian McKinnon of Jones and Beach Engineers on behalf of Precision Cut Lumber LLC requesting a site plan review. The intent of this project is to construct two 56 by 100 foot chicken houses to expand the poultry egg business. The affected property is located at 123 Old Turnpike Road in Nottingham, New Hampshire, and is identified as tax map number 4, lot 1-1. The first hearing for this case happened on April 8th. We had a site walk on April 15th, and the case is continuing today. Blair, are we going into non-public now? Okay, so the board is going to be going into a non-public session in accordance with RSA 91A, Section 3, Part 2, Item L, consideration of legal advice provided by legal counsel, either in writing or orally, to one or more members of the public body, even where legal counsel is not present. And so I am going to call a roll call vote to enter non-public session.
We need a motion in a second.
Oh, sorry, we need a motion to enter non-public session, and it'll be a roll call vote.
I'd like to make a motion to enter non-public session as described. Do I have to read this whole thing again?
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion from Mr. Ryan, a second from Mr. Griswold. Roll call vote. Mr.
Aye.
Severns? Mr. Lichtenwalder?
Aye.
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 Sorry, aye, Andrew
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye, Adam Ryan.
Okay, so we are going to,
So you all stay here, we're gonna go across the hall. It's easier for us to move than you, so.
and,
What's that?
We just freed up conference.
The conference room? Okay, great, thank you.
and planning board members, there is in your packets, this non-public doc guidance.
I don't know what's in here.
We talked about this last time. Yeah, did you forget what it was about? Oh, that's true. You got to, yeah. Right after they came out of my mouth, I saw that. Yeah, because I remember. Because otherwise it would to get legal advice.
But
Is hopefully that's right.
there's ways to put the business in the back. So
I'm Deborah.
I'm Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
my
you.
worry though is that I think these different veins here are wetlands.
Oh,
Back
Yes.
Oh, no, no.
I'm sure there's
Doing
talk
this,
about
I'm thinking you're talking about the walking, and that's what I
Oh.
walk.
this track
A little on
On Lincoln,
Nothing can be
because
considered
we went
wetlands.
around.
They really, yeah.
Well, we only.
It's been tampered with, refilled, permitted after the fact.
Oh, I didn't-
Because you can't determine what was actually naturally wetland. Yes,
Oh,
yes.
Oh, wow.
Because there's no coordinates, there's no nothing, just vague. He said, no, they can't tell you. The guy, when we did this, who was in charge, that was his biggest thing. You can't build here, it's all wetlands, it's all this. I showed him that piece of paper, he put it back, he says, well, I guess you can build anything you want. He was an engineer, so that's the only reason I bought the property.
Yep.
Didn't have a piece of paper, it wasn't.
Yeah, that's my sense, right?
I paid cash with no contingencies. But that being said, out here, and then ask for whatever I wanna ask for out here, because according to the law, they have to give it to me.
Well, it would remove, depending on how they come back, it would remove the whole.
No, they don't. Because they only have to.
I mean, the other thought too is, I mean, you really just need to get back beyond this line. The problem is they're gonna do that, and they're gonna force you to show a full survey.
The first one,
That's
like I
right.
said, that
He kinda told me, he's like, I've surveyed this thing before, so everything is solvable, it's just fucking time, which is annoying.
What?
I, I don't know how much I saw.
I think in any way they're gonna
Maybe
need to
today.
use the site plan back here, because there was a site plan for this. And usually if there's a site plan on the property, any changes to the property, whether it's like a permitted use or not, if it's a disturbance, additional has to be brought to certainly procedural stuff, they're gonna try to screw with us on that. I know it's procedural.
Because I couldn't find any of the testimony.
This is kind of odd.
Since it was written, did they upload all of that stuff?
They did
Oh,
yesterday,
yes.
but I don't know where it is
I
today.
just think it's good. I get the
Yes.
sense that
Yes.
It's there.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
He was reading.
Oh, okay. There wasn't when I last looked yesterday. Right.
It was there. Oh, that's right, yeah. It was, cause I saw it.
Oh. Okay, and I was looking.
Yeah, no, he actually, he came home and let me know he's putting in a cease and desist on the building, which I told him was already been ceased and desist, all I did was put in place. He says, no, I understand things, I ain't coming back here, and he says, listen, we have a relation with the chicken, so we have nothing to write. There's absolutely nothing. So we'll see, we'll see what we say. But now I officially have a residence there, and as a resident, I still, I'm trying to think technically that woman has, I think it's another 30 days to, I think there's a clock on appealing last night's decision. She can't, she's not in the bubble. Well, that's not, it would get thrown. Yeah, she can't change state laws, so.
No, no, hers is Nelson. Okay, her husband and son as well. And she kept saying, I want next Nelson. And you know, it's a big girl wife.
I wonder if they're gonna try and give me a big fine, because I have you done the flat out. The minute you told me I gotta pay for the outcomes. So you're getting the same bill.
And I just 23, yeah, because there's been 3 years ago. He was 35.
Oh, yes, yes. Same age as mine. They were in school together.
Sandy.
I need for him.
I wasn't sure. Yeah, nice.
Oh, no.
Excuse me, Ian, is there anything different on here other than the composting area?
Layout wise, like, no, the structure is the same location. So so this is the stormwater plan, so it's kind of more than 20 years. Yeah, the only difference was this moved over here. It was up in, it was up in this line.
Yeah.
So we moved it here, we're outside that 75-foot setback that is required, it's actually called out for in the ordinance, that there's no setback for any newer wells from a wetland. Wells are kind of weird nuance on this site that they've been previously disturbed for state law, but we're being conservative. The state actually doesn't necessarily consider that a wetland because of previous actions on this property. For the sake we're being conservative. These are not, those are the states, they have not moved. We basically added a berm, and then there's a small detention basin. I was at the request of the sidewalk of one of the planning board members to consider doing that, so we replaced that instead of the meadow. There was a meadow buffer originally along the north, Plain North, which is the west side.
And is there some sort of fencing that goes around this area here, or how does that work? Or is this all
So
here?
there's gonna be a 100-foot chain link fence there, so they've been driven very close to the ground. There is now currently some electrified fence kind of through the property.
Yep.
The intent is to still use that, but it's kind of one of those movable things, like he might just kind of block off some areas, because you can often do that to let grass kind of grow up.
Yes, it is.
For example,
Hi, Sandy.
if I put a line in paper for an electric movable fence, it's gonna kind of move week to week, so, but yes, there will likely be some, like solar powered, we have power on the property, he could just. So it kind of control, this, the intent is that this is kind of the area for the chickens. This will all be grass, even though it's a pond, it's all grass.
It
There's a
started
special seed that's
started
so it holds up well to livestock. Chickens like it too.
Yes, so there's
Do you know how many feet it is from Route 4 to where the chicken's gonna be, roughly? Is there a scale?
There is, I think it's about 500, wait, is it 500 feet on this side?
Yeah.
It's this one, so this is about 500 feet from here to here.
480.
This is about 300 and change, I'd say, for the first building, so you're about 300 feet. This is about 200 in the back of this building, 200, 250.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Live for you now.
Jeff,
Live for you.
how long have you been doing it?
27 years.
Oh, wow. Yes, 30. You're in Lincoln?
This weekend when I saw him, he couldn't come, he's on his way to Indianapolis, he goes to Indianapolis 500 every year.
Oh, nice.
And I was told him, I was like, can you send an email? I'm like, just send an email just saying, hey, you cleaned up, this is where I live. Never noticed it.
Not that I can imagine.
Because he has like
I didn't know
ducks
they weren't there.
and livestock again. It was great. And you have chickens, like people on the corner of the road. Chickens.
I'm so excited to get that. I dare Yikes. Tuck away, so that's down the corner. I should say don't do that.
But tell her not.
Problem.
I know I should've. Lawyer called me. So you need us there tonight.
Well, it's in their best
So-
interest, they gotta
Yeah, we'll call back. Yeah,
It's probably better if it was.
Sort of like you're trying to you actually want to slow
Yeah,
down.
well, especially if
I
they want to do whatever it is.
The only issue is like, we could have started with them trying to make always, I just felt that perception wise. That's why like after tonight, I didn't expect it tonight. Perception wise, if you like go and bring one in and like let him take over. It's like, oh, they're kind of like worried and scared. But if you're gonna say a decision like this, that's like, of course we're gonna bring an attorney in.
He's all.
Yes.
Well, anybody that
We've
was at
waited
last
a
week-
Because my thought is that.
Yeah, and I
know the
sent
application
something on
reads
how
that
to
it's.
Oh, you did? On Monday,
The usual.
but it didn't generate a whole lot of
It's
interest.
just so nice
In
to
my
see
opinion,
them.
Here.
we could.
Which is
We
not
did it
unusual.
on my
What's
favorite
the
show.
stop us from?
Yeah.
I thought I
Yeah.
saw one the other
Amending
day.
our
Oh,
request
yeah.
for
Yeah, and they knew it.
variance for
They knew it.
It's
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
today or whatever.
the building.
That's a really nice thing.
That is part of the lumber business for storage, for material.
Oh, yeah.
They probably won't write that on the front.
We have a maple tree there.
We could amend our application.
Like I told you, I don't need a building for the chickens. And if they wanna try and get me to get rid of the chickens,
All
let's
the
kill them.
ones we get.
I think we should still go for it. This point, we started the process. We can say, you know what? We're gonna do these two buildings for the purpose of supporting accessory structures for the purpose of existing business.
Oh.
Improve 2020.
Yes,
They would see that it's a way for us to get the building, but I don't think it's a way we're removing these questions. Because they might improve the existing. Technically, both the existing are improved.
You get reception.
Hey, Pam.
I tied into the internet. They do have Wi-Fi that you can
I'm well, how
connect
are
to.
you?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, it's not public, it was needed for legal counsel. No, that's the other cafes.
Which you
So it's right, it's on his pockets. Do you want me to send it to you too, please?
Sure.
There we go.
I'm sure you have a lot of interest.
I do. And I've got more tonight. This is one of my favorites.
I know, I would have liked to be a fly on the wall to stay in the meeting room for 2 months.
It just kills me. There's so many people, and this does not affect them.
Doesn't make sense.
The only way to stop that is to go back after the case is over.
Yeah, wait till
Yeah. Oh, no, I am.
You were like missing a chicken.
Yeah, right. It's got one.
it would have taken this long, and the attorney probably basically told there's multiple ways to interpret it, and said, it's up to you. They do that a lot. They basically present cases, but leave it to them to decide. That happened to us a lot when I was on the board. And I'm like, but now I'm taking the legal responsibility. Like you're my lawyer.
It is. Oh my God. It's older than my oldest child.
Well, other weird.
I think I was pregnant.
You know, I find in church
I was
supplies.
21 years old.
Crazy phone number. Mine is an alternate.
Surgery. Served me well. I got a couple more. I remember agonizing.
Chris is here.
And
He's gonna go.
21 years old, still using it. So yes, I can just shine. Yeah.
So in theory,
It's a beautiful color.
he's good for us.
It's well worth it.
Some of us can lose color.
Yeah. I look a little more worn after 21 years too. More
Well, it
wrinkles.
didn't in children.
Yeah. More chemo.
Oh, yeah. Radiation.
That did a number on me. I swear that aged me 20 years. I do remember calling this night. My stepmother and mother, stepmother, and like,
Big bottle from last night. I got a scan, I didn't read it like word for word, I scanned the page to them. Basically what I was saying is,
she talked me into it. She's like,
she took
funny
away
thing, so what?
from, may need to have,
Well, I would have to agree with that
so that you can
statement,
now listen to the state.
although I'm not sure I would have done that.
In the town,
Well,
may
it
need
wasn't how it wasn't bad, but
to have
mm,
X amount of
I just do remember struggling
She
with
took
church,
that
so
as
it's so
I
funny to think of.
the chicken business, cause it wasn't real. But in
So
the town, we have no regulation. So
So
chickens
it
are
might have been, might have been.
if you don't regulate them, how do you need to regulate them? Well, it's also, I did
Yeah,
read her report,
it's
she's
funny, it's funny.
using evidence of like that you hadn't done the right process because you had a building. They go, I don't know. That's why I know you don't know the process. Because some towns, the zoning board likes to have like a denial from the zoning officer to say, yes, in fact, they do need this relief. It's not necessary by law, but a lot of towns just buy it and do it for decades. So like,
Someone else's.
she sees it, it's like, that's on the checklist, basically.
Someone else.
Well, basically says, every variance that comes before us, they want that. So it's just a checklist that has nothing to do with like, oh, you did something wrong. That's what it is, so many times I did everything right. We were able to, get that number for me. Yeah, let me see, what's his name, JSN? Yep, I'm doing it now, I looked him up today and then somebody called me. JSN Associates.
She's sort of busy, I think. She's always busy. Yeah. So what does she have to, is she happy, is she well?
She seems to be quite good. She's really good. Something's really good. Because they were supposed to have the meeting.
Oh. They who?
Did you sign it? She was, yes, I did. I didn't.
No, no, I organized it.
Was a meeting there too.
Probably,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I know a husband because this one is also beginning of time.
What a wonderful organization.
Yeah.
I was there for a long time and I retired and I said, I'm done.
Yeah.
Enough is enough, you know?
Did you sign me in?
Volunteers get put upon.
Oh, yeah, it's, you know,
It's
and-
true.
And that's okay, you know, but it's usually all the same volunteers. That's the
That's
problem.
what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want something done, you ask a busy person.
Yeah. Oh, did I hear the door open? Try that.
Not necessarily. Well, yeah, but they came charging in. That's what done.
Swear I didn't take anything, Blair.
Let me see there. I can't think of this.
I just emailed you.
You
That guy, Jeff, at JSN Associates out of Portsmouth. And I gave you an alternate if he doesn't, if for some reason he can't fit you in or something like that, there's another, the other one I gave you,
Years in the making.
Summit Engineering. I've never worked with it, but I have a lot of colleagues that have worked with them. Said good things. There's a lot of like bigger firms, but you wanna get caught up in the bureaucracy of like, every job has two people, project manager and engineer.
I just. It's nuts.
We're kind of in a gray area here, but
So is
Most
Kelsey's gonna
home.
take care of the business?
none of my residence is there. As far as I'm concerned, it's a farm.
Just make sure the
I've
house
seen
is
that with blueprints on it.
Just like over.
Or like they just print plans.
Yeah.
They're in a closed, non-public session at the moment.
okay.
They'll be back.
Well, we hope they will.
They might decide to go out.
Yeah, they might. Night on the town.
Yeah.
Meet us at fires.
He's leaving also packages. Mostly.
It's weird, 'cause she's so good.
They do it all the time too, so it's like.
Family is good.
I guess
No, this is what started it. The non-public meeting is what started it, so you haven't missed anything.
Oh my God, no. The weather's been Those were 70
Good weather.
Yesterday, he left this against. Just there, you've been.
Grill.
Okay, we are back in public session. So the board did vote that the poultry and egg use is an allowed use in the commercial industrial zone because our zoning ordinances do not explicitly prohibit that use, and state RSAs are, that is how the state RSAs are written. Normally, it's prescriptive in that zoning ordinances list accepted uses, but the state has said that agricultural uses, if they are prohibited in a zoning district, it must be explicitly prohibited, and it is not in our zoning ordinances for the commercial industrial zone. Okay. So with that, I will turn it over to the applicant, Mr. McKinnon. Thank you.
Good evening, Ian McKinnon with Jones Beach Engineers. Here again tonight with the applicant and owner of Precision Cut Lumber, Wade Demench. So as the chairman said, we were last before the board on April 8th. We had a good attendance at a site walk on the 15th of April. And then we submitted, between then and April 29th, we worked on some revisions based on comments from both the board, the planning board meeting, and then some kind of general discussion requests and topics from the site walk. So the revised plans that we delivered to town, I do have them up on the board, and I do have an extra 11 by 17 if somebody would like one, but I'll just kind of quickly go through the changes. There has been no changes to the location of the structure, both the phase one, the one that you would see built first, and the future chicken house. But again, because we know it's coming, we did show that on there as well. So that the structures are unchanged. We did move the manure and composting area further east on the property, kind of northeast from where it was previously. So as you might recall, it was kind of planned north, closer to that of Butter. We moved it planned south, really kind of along one of the access roads through the property, one of the historic access roads through the property. We are still showing it on a concrete pad. I did do on the grading plan, we did add a grading plan this time around. And I'll discuss a couple other things of the reason why. But we did show that, we are showing that composting area on a concrete pad this time. I didn't have it with me, but I did. You know, the reason that we are still showing it where it is, it's roughly 35 feet from the abutters lot line, and we are outside of the 75-foot wetland setback that is prescribed in the ordinance. The reason that we do have it where we located and would like to still do it as a concrete pad is because the site plan regulation that I was thinking of at the last meeting was it's regulation 1310 3C. So this is essentially it's the parking regulations, but there's a subsection C there states no paving, parking, loading area, or storage shall be permitted within 20 feet of any side or rear property line. So our opinion is that the concrete pad for manure storage and composting would qualify under the storage component of that definition or that requirement. If the board still feels that the concrete pad is what's kind of maybe triggering a setback issue, then we might just not do it on a concrete pad. It is preferred just kind of for the cleanliness and the operations of the manure, so we don't get any underlying earth mixing in with the process. On the grading and drainage plan, one of the things we added was we did add drip edge infiltration trenches to both long sides of the building, because that's where the roof will pitch. Those will be 3 foot wide, 3 foot deep, clean stone, so should be more than adequate for receiving most storm events. If they do overtop, it would just be essentially surface flow and then actually be captured. The ones on the planned north side of the building would go to the other feature that we added to the plan. In place of the meadow buffer, which I think there was some concern potentially of how to ensure that is maintained or it continues to exist in a strong vegetated state. Per state regulation, that would have to basically maintain 80 to 85% vegetated cover to exist as a buffer. So in place of that, then there was also some concern about potential volume control. What we've done is shown a small detention basin. We'll do some light, I'll call it a berm, but it's not maybe what most people think is a berm. It's really a small, 12-inch tall berm really that would direct flow to this, and really the goal here is, we haven't done a full on stormwater analysis for the entire project. We didn't as part of the original project as well, but the hope is that, I think the board's intent was to do something in the way of capturing any sort of runoff, so this would actually act as both like any sort of sediment runoff. This would also act to capture that. It's shallow, there's no steep sides to it, from the, where the chickens may be. So it's easily maintained. This will be vegetated, so it would be mowed if needed or weed whacked if needed. And then has a stone stabilized level spreader outlet, and that outlet would outlet towards the wetland, or it's really a drainage ditch between us and the abutter to the west, and then that flows towards Route 4. We are still showing unchanged, we're still showing an 8-foot chain link fence along a large portion of the western property. This fence will be supplemented. If you were at the sidewalk, there is some electric fence kind of being used on that west side now. The intent is that with this 8-foot chain link, we can pull that kind of movable electric fence into the site, and it will be a movable, kind of a flexible boundary, but and use that interior to the site to kind of keep any sort of chickens really from the building back is the intent. So, but it's designed to be movable because Mr. Demanch still operates his wood shop out of here, so he still needs to kind of move equipment around the site. So it's intended to be kind of a flexible barrier. And then the last item was one thing that we forgot to include. I was out of the state when my team kind of helped me resubmit this. We had put together some very basic kind of 2-scale elevations, and so I brought those with me tonight, and I emailed them as well. But essentially, just kind of giving a depiction of what these storage units will be relative to the rest of the structure. So as many saw, that there's kind of 4 8x8x40 steel storage containers. Those essentially make up the corner structures of this. On the end view, you'd have potentially, I'm showing it as a double door. I think Wade's got to kind of figure out if that's what he's going to do, or a single slide. It would likely be a slide door of some sort. That would be on that end. The walls of this will be framed, basically anything between the storage containers would just be a standard studded framed wall. Luckily, somebody can cut his own studs from what he has on site. And that would be studded, and then he also would mill his own 1x pine siding. So you'd see vertical pine siding likely on the building. Same thing along the side. So the difference with the end is those storage container doors do need to be accessible. So those would be visible on the ends, and they would frame around. Along the side of the building, so the long ends of the building, there's no doors on the side of those containers. The thought now is the current thought is to essentially just, it's not easy, but you can secure a studded essentially exoskeleton on those, such that he could carry that pine vertical siding the whole length of this. So it is proposed to be a 412 pitch, likely a metal roof. So these plans, there will be need to be more information supplied to the building inspector as part of any sort of building permit for this building. But this is our elevation architectural depiction of what you might see. So it will look like a lot of other agricultural barns with the vertical wood siding in many ways. So we did provide that. And then the last thing, just in reading Blair's staff report today, identifying the need for a potential waiver to a full site survey of the 31 acres. I did file a waiver request for that. I'm happy to kind of go through that when the time is appropriate. But other than that, I think I've hit, I went back through my action items that I had put for my notes. So I think I hit all the items from the meeting, and plus some of the comments I think that we got from the stormwater front from the sidewalk. So if there's something that I'm missing, please let me know, but I'm happy to take questions or go from there with the board.
Questions from the board?
Yep.
You're showing on the phase 1 building that it's very close to that 100-foot setback. And I'm noticing that you've got overhangs on the buildings shown. Are those going to be within the setback or?
No, so there's, at this scale, that's about a 2 to 3 foot offset from the setback. It's actually almost probably 2.75 if I'm going off the hatching. We're only proposing about a 12-inch overhang right now.
We have a number of chickens that are proposed here.
I don't see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's necessarily, there's state and federal law that governs that, but, the current thinking, I think we said last time, was your goal is to stay under the state threshold of 3,000, so.
Yeah.
That's what we believe this layout would support.
So 3,000 is the answer to that question?
That's our current, that's the plan with this site plan, yeah.
And chickens have babies, what do? Kill them? What happens?
No, it's, yeah, if you wanna speak to just the quick, I mean, kind of the hatching, yeah.
Well, as far as chicken regulation goes, town of Nottingham doesn't have any whatsoever, according to Dale. He hasn't got a problem with chickens at all. Second, the 3,000, where that comes into play, is for eggs, 20,000 for meat birds. That's when the feds get involved to regulate health and disease control and everything because at that point, it become a little bit more than a egg farm. I wanna stay under that. But that's 3,000 laying hens is when the feds and the state get involved. So let's say I had 3,000 laying hens at 29, I had 500 roosters, it doesn't come into play. As far as any type of regulation. The state of New Hampshire really doesn't have any regulations on chickens. They have regulations on the sale of the eggs and the chicken meat, but that comes after 3,000 laying hens for the eggs and 20,000.
Speak up, it's really hard
I'm
to hear
sorry.
him. We can't hear him well here at all.
I'm sorry, there's no mic and I'm not screaming.
So can I just ask, you're talking 20,000?
No, I'm not.
Public comment will come later.
Yep, sorry.
This is for the board right now.
So I think I'll just, yeah, it's the way that we've laid out this site with this first phase 1 chicken house and phase 2, the intent of the operation is that our goal is to stay under the 3,000. Intent right now, based on the reason you're doing this is because he has essentially interests or letters of interest from 3 restaurants to provide roughly 18,000 eggs a week. You can do that with 3,000 laying hens. That's what he has right now. That is the current business plan, and that's what we feel this plan supports. There is no plan to do meat birds as part of a commercial operation at this time. It is the purpose of egg laying and collection of the eggs and sale of the eggs.
So we did hear at one point, I thought that these are gonna be like free-range birds.
Yep, they're allowed to be outside the structure as well, but they will, you know, they have free range during the day to be outside the building.
How do you manage the chicken poop? For lack of
We've
is there a
gone
word
over
for that
this
outside?
several times.
Yeah.
I'm asking for a building. I don't need the building for the chickens by state law. I can take my 4 containers and put them chickens all around my yard, and there's anything anybody can say or do about it.
That's not true.
Well,
That's not true at all. We have site plan review regulation authority, so that's what you're here for, is a site plan application, which
I'm here
includes the
for a
use.
building.
And there are purposes of
includes
the
the
zoning
use.
that deal with health and safety of the residents of the town that are important.
I don't have any health issues. I've had the chickens for 2 years.
The town has an obligation to review a site plan review
We
application.
did that. I answered every one of these questions. This will be my 3rd round.
I'm not saying that you know, Chris's questions haven't been addressed, but what I'm addressing is your statement that you can do what you want, which is not true.
Well, I didn't say exactly I could do what I want,
But as long as we're all on the same page that the use is allowed, but it's
I'm
also.
trying to do this the right way,
It's
the
all-
easiest way, the safest way, the cleanest way. And it seems like, you know, I got an entire town that wants to try and shut me down.
I would tell you.
That's what it feels like.
I don't know what to tell you. All I can tell you though is that we have site plan regulations and this is what the board is doing.
All right.
So if there's somebody else that has
I think
questions.
if I try and answer Chris's question, if they're essentially free range now, the thought is that when they're in the building, it's easy, they're confined, they're obviously in a smaller footprint overnight, that's where it's easy to collect that waste, the manure. They kind of come and go outside the building throughout the day, so yes, when they're free range, they're obviously gonna do their business on the ground. One of the reasons that we specifically called out really a conservation or chicken-friendly seed mix is there's special seed mixes out there specifically for chickens that have both a variety that's healthier for them, but it's also a little hardier for essentially maintaining vegetation while expecting obviously chicken traffic on top of it. Right now, this plan proposes essentially more clear open space than what they have now, just because of the way some of the log piles have been historically. Wade's been basically working on trying to consolidate some of his wood stock piles for his wood business. So really the space that they have now, we're increasing with this site plan. So our hope is it hasn't been an issue with the birds that he has now, and we're providing additional space. So we don't expect it to be an issue of any exterior, collection of. We're not going to go around and pick up waste, through the grassed areas. That's not the intent.
So that eventually saturates the ground, basically, over time?
Like anything, yeah. Fertilizers that we put on our lawns, all that kind of same kind of idea. Yep.
Okay, well, we'd be curious about the intensity of that, and certainly we don't have expertise in that potentially.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say on that too is that is covered, like the state BMPs and the agricultural division will have BMPs on to farmers on to how best management. And really the goal there is, right, as much area as possible such that it spreads out, essentially self-composts, and then essentially acts as a fertilizer for any sort of vegetation.
Do we have a current BMT now?
It's essentially, it's just like state law. It's a state law best management practice that any farmer is really asked. It's not law, it's a best management practice that obviously the state encourages all agricultural entities to follow.
So,
and that's where we've laid out, like we have used that when we've done the composting, the manure composting bins. They recommend to do it on a concrete, they don't say it has to be on a concrete pad, they do recommend. And that's why we're proposing it to be on a concrete pad.
Are those covered?
They are not planned to be covered now, and partially why, we talked about this a little bit on the site walk, I've had to learn about as well, is when you're doing the composting process, a lot of times you actually have to add water, because that compost is essentially putting off heat and evaporating. By the end of that composting process, there's questions about smell. Obviously, when you collect it fresh, like any sort of manure, it will have a smell to it in the first bin, the first process. By the end of that manuring process, or the composting process, sorry, it's neutralized. That bacteria that's obviously been composting in itself, that's when it's ready for sale. It's been neutralized, so there's no odor. It's just like if you go buy composted chicken manure, it smells nothing like if you were walking through a bunch of chickens. But it's not, it actually, by putting a roof on it, would actually mean manually, Wade would have to add more water. And that is also covered under the best management practice. With composting is you seek to maintain a certain moisture ratio. And that's why you have to turn it over and move it from bin to bin. So that's why covering it, we're planning not to cover it. So obviously we can utilize any sort of moisture that falls from the sky and have it essentially self-water itself. There's still, and I believe there still would be a need to kind of monitor that. There's a special probe, I think, that helps you kind of determine heat, temperature, and moisture content. And so that's monitored from bin to bin. And you just kind of follow the state's practice on that. And there's a lot of other literature too, not just the state of New Hampshire. Obviously, a lot of other agricultural states have their own thoughts on it. So
I've just replaced a couple of septic systems, and I think you find the ground gets saturated and then impervious and, you know, eventually the water that comes from the sky, I mean, some is gonna be evaporated and, you know, maybe detectable by neighbors, I don't know, and maybe some's gonna flow into the ground. So is your detention that you have, is that designed for only rainwater for this site, for the buildings, or is it to accommodate the disposal or the runoff from the manure piles as well? From the capacity.
Topography wise, the manure pile will be detached from that area. We were asked to kind of move it away from that side of the property. It would pick up surface runoff from the free range area of the building. If those drip edge infiltration trenches overflow, in theory, that's where it would go. But it's intended to really just, I think the request from a board member was to provide some degree of peak rate runoff volume control, and so we've added this.
So the water running off from the manure pile, the rain, where is that going? Just straight into the ground?
It would run
Without
off.
filter, without stop, no catch basin, detention, nothing?
Nope, so from day one, yeah, the current plan, we're not showing any sort of collection of, I think, I can't remember what the term was called, what do they call it? What is that?
Chicken tea.
Chicken tea. It is, you know, something that Wade has played with, is at some point collecting, you can actually, any runoff that does come off that pad, you can essentially catch with, say, a trench drain or something, and that is a highly sought after fertilizer, that liquid. Currently the plan is there's a vegetated buffer that exists next to it, and that any runoff that comes from it would go through that. From my understanding of doing some reading myself, and from, I know some of the research I think Wade and his son have done, it truly, because of the amount of heat that falls off, what rains on top of it, and because it's a high porosity, that compost, right, and you're turning it over quite often, I mean, unless we're getting back-to-back high saturation 100-year storms, that pile wants the moisture because it's creating all that heat. But again, we're state best practices, we're following, in terms of the composting and manuring, we're trying to follow the best management practice from the state as closely as we can with the space that we have available. This pad actually probably should be a little bit bigger if you go off their typical, but we're as close as we can be to their size operation.
It's dead on for chickens.
Okay.
So you were saying that the concrete pad, that's not a structure, in your opinion.
Yeah, because I couldn't remember, I think it was Glenn, I think that brought it up last time, and I knew, honestly, it was from years back being on this board, but there was a site plan regulation that specifies, so it really covers parking setbacks. So oddly enough, the town doesn't have a parking setback from the front lot line, but it does regulate paved loading, storage, and parking areas relative to side and rear lot lines. And so our opinion, that I found that regulation, I didn't have the ordinance with me last time at the meeting, but it's that article or site plan regulation 1310-3C, and that's where it speaks to that storage areas need to maintain that 20-foot. In this case, we're maintaining a 75-foot setback from the nearest known wet area, and so we try to be conservative, and so we're roughly 35 feet from the nearest lot line, and we're actually so that's obviously that's another opinion that we've had. Another option is if the concrete pad is still being seen as maybe not qualifying under that, you can do this composting on just bare earth with the different bins. It's just, we feel it would be a cleaner process, a smoother process to be able to turn these things over if we're trying not to mix natural earth every time we turn these over. So that's why we felt the concrete pad is a long-term kind of best management practice that we could implement.
And you have nowhere else on the property to locate that would be outside of that 100-foot buffer or setback and maintain.
Right, so in terms of the option, so the structure, we kind of start with the structure, right? So you can obviously tell by the width of the property is about 300 feet. We have about 100-foot envelope, east-west. And so we placed both of the first phase structure and potentially the future and we're not sure yet if that's even gonna be built. We started there, and then I think from hearing the board and just looking at every other kind of constraint on the property, we can't move it closer to Route 4. I don't think people would want that. We had it on the other side of the building. I guess if if the board agreed with my opinion that it does qualify under that 1310 3C, it could be on the planned north side where it was previously on the west side of the property, but I think just knowing kind of where the other abutter is, this just seems a little bit kind of best for both us and trying to reduce distance to abutters, which was a request from the board, so. Even if we didn't do the concrete pad, it's kind of, our opinion is it's out of the way, but also not too far away, right? So, I mean, the intent here is he's gonna, by bucket with his tractor, move it over there, so we don't want it to be too far away. Certainly from here, you can't see it from Route 4, it's completely out of sight back here. It's
How
still
about the-
accessible if he needs to load a dump truck with, a fully composted.
And the abutting property there that it's, close to the property line with, is it close to any building or, residence or anything like that there?
No, if that's a commercial is there another user? But it's a commercial building with a garage, 2 buildings. It's a commercial garage and a commercial kind of office building. Those are both in the front half of the property, kind of actually outside of this view. And so this area, it's cleared, but it's just grassed back here in the back of that abutting lot. And it's trees when you get to our property.
So, the regulation he's citing is for parking, off-street parking and loading, which this is not.
Right.
And a structure is defined as anything that is built and fixed to the land.
Right.
So that's what this would be, with the concrete pad.
Right, but a storage area on a concrete pad, this is storage of composted manure.
Right.
It's on a concrete pad.
So that shouldn't need
it's
a
storage.
setback.
But if you're saying, so what storage could I put on a concrete pad and not have to meet the 100-foot setback? I mean, the regulation, I know it's under the off-street parking, but it also uses the term storage.
Right, the storage is like the storage of a car, because it's for parking and loading.
I guess I disagree with, it doesn't clarify that it says.
In the off-street parking and loading section, what else would it be?
I agree with that, but it says parking areas, so it specifically says parking areas, and then storage separately. So if I was to say be a retail business and put a concrete pad because I wanted to store firewood, that would fall under.
No, I think this is like storage of commercial vehicles. If you have a fleet of cars, you don't store them more than 20 feet closer to the property line.
I guess my opinion is if this, we'll just won't do the concrete pad. I disagree with the definition, the interpretation of the definition. It doesn't say, it just says storage. It doesn't define what type of storage. I understand it's under the parking regulations. I've also read these ordinances for 8 years, and there's a lot of holes that we've filled in the past. So I believe that's one of those ones where it's not definitively defined. So I mean, I guess if that's the opinion, then we'll just won't do it on the concrete pad.
The board can condition it, so that'll have to be a decision if that's what they want to do.
Either way, we do feel this location is the best to kind of listening to the feedback from the board, abutters, and still trying to be conscious of the operation that Wade needs to do, so.
And the owner I'm close to said, do whatever you want.
And I know, yeah, and Wade, I know he knows this owner, he's spoken to him multiple times. But again, from the site plan perspective, understood you can't just take in because a neighbor said, hey, I'm fine with it, so.
Right, and then that neighbor might not be there in the future. The board can interpret this, the way they want. The applicants provided their interpretation, and the board can condition this to have a concrete bottom for the storage. It's within the purview of the board, so.
I guess you could ask for a waiver too if you wanted to.
You could ask for a waiver, if that's what you want to do.
Where this concrete pad is composting area, on page C2, seems to be located in a, poorly drained soil, PF014/.
Yeah, so you're looking, you're on C2.
Yes.
That is from so that's from the state GIS. We use this aerial to try and provide essentially a underlying aerial imagery. It complies essentially with what the town uses for GIS.
Has a soil survey been done here on this site?
Nope, this doesn't trigger any sort of need for like a soil survey itself. It would need to trigger a much larger state permit to require an actual soil scientist to do a soil survey. Those and I can speak from experience, those purple, so the PFOE is the designation of certain types of wetlands. They're generally a planning tool. I'd say it's 50-50 if they're even close to where the wetlands are. This doesn't show, I mean, I've walked some of these areas and, you know, these, I'll call them the blobs of purple. If you notice, they oftentimes don't really align very well with the contours either, so. It is it's a planning tool put out by the state. It happens to be an underlying layer with the town's GIS, so yes, it shows up on that underlying aerial.
Has a wetland delineation been done?
So as part of the original site plan, when there was a wet soil, Wade knows more. This property is somewhat unique in that.
How long ago was that?
So for the additional backstory, this property was previously permitted. There was an owner before you, correct? Many years before it was purchased.
In 2003.
He disturbed most wetlands on
They
the
had
site.
all the front of this as poor drainage. And the reason I bought this property is because of this piece of paper. In 2003, the owner dredged, refilled, and was permitted after the fact and fined $300. He did away with all the wetlands there. It was filled with clay, that you guys should have record of. I have a copy of it in my office. And so this is not considered.
So the poorly drained soils shown on here, we've kind of taken a conservative approach. These are delineated by, at the time when a septic designer did theirs, because by under state regulation, a septic designer can identify poorly and very poorly drained soils for the purpose of a site plan, or sorry, for a septic design. So for his purposes, essentially he tried to be conservative, that yes, these areas do still exist as poorly or very poorly drained. In this area, it's poorly drained.
So there is a setback from poorly drained soils for buildings, is there not? And if we don't know where they are, then how can we determine if this is a location suitable?
If they are deemed wetlands, under that state, so this is a conservative, I think what I've heard, and it's a gray area for me too, but Wade is, the reason he probably, there's a state order, I think it's called out in one of the notes, I can probably find it. The wetlands in all this area that we're talking about was previously permitted by the state and then after the fact that essentially they're not wetlands. They may show wetland characteristics, but they were previously filled and altered wetlands. Areas that became wetlands were essentially because he decided to dig out and put clay around them. It's first time I've ever seen it when I came across it.
So in 2003, these were wetlands, they were filled in, and we don't know where the wetlands went to. They could still be there or not there, we don't know that.
No, so essentially when you have a permanent wetland impact, it is not a wetland if the land is still utilized, so the grass and trees are maintained, it doesn't, that still exists as a wetland impact. Yes, you can have, after a long time, if you decide to impact a wetland and you just don't operate on the property, it can become, but as long as the property is still operated on, it is a permanent wetland impact. And that's part of it, is there actually was no known limits of where the wetlands were before the previous owner in 2003
And that's
did
why
all
I'm
that
asking
work.
if there's a current wetland survey or soils survey been done.
Well, so that's what if we did it, you would have no way, because this guy just moved, and I've seen when he was excavating some of the under drains as part of the phase one, there was just pockets of natural soil, clay soil. A soil scientist would mark most of this as fully disturbed soils along the front of the property. The state has no way, they had no way of defining where the wetlands were because they came in after the fact. And
I'm a soil scientist.
I am not, but I know that if the site is previously disturbed.
I don't think you can offer this expertise then, can you?
I respectfully, I've done plenty of wetland permitting in my career. If a site is permitted after the fact because somebody disturbed soils and moved them around a site, a soil scientist will show up on site and say, I can't map the natural soils. And that would go for wetlands as well. It would be suspect if you can flag a wetland properly, both from vegetation, but you need 3 triggers. You need vegetation, soil, and then topography characteristics. So there's multiple things to define a wetland, but if you don't have those because of previous actions on the property, you can't actually, with Definity, put your stamp on it and say that's a wetland. There's likely parts of the property much further back where the logging happened, but where the previous owner hadn't ever disturbed. Those probably are natural wetlands, but the area that we're working in is the area that the permit covered. That's why the wet areas shown on here were under the state's subsurface bureau regulations, and those are different. And honestly, and I'm aware of who did the septic design, they basically took a conservative approach and said, there was wet soils in this area. And we've made sure to cite the septic, so we're taking a conservative approach to say, yeah, there was previously identified wet soils in this area. For the sake of the town setback, and that's kind of why we're showing the setback here, we're gonna show our composting away from it. But in the eyes of DES Wetland Bureau, it is not a wetland. It's a kind of-
One of the comments that I made was that, the plan needs signatures and seals.
Yeah, so it'd be
we should-
mine, but.
So if the surveyors would be on there, but you're saying there will be no wetlands scientists on there?
Not in the scope of the area that we have, because it's covered under that previous
Because it's not
state
a,
action.
it's poorly drained soils, but it's not a wetland.
Exactly, and that's, yeah, correct, and that, exactly, yes. I understand that it's a very, I've
Yeah.
never encountered a site like this before, / I'm surprised they let them get away with it for $300, but,
Okay.
that has changed since then, it's a lot bigger fee.
And that's note 10 on C2.
Yeah, thank you, sorry, yep, I started to look at that. Yep, so there's a previous action in 2002, so it was filed in 2002, but the action likely happened in 2003, but the application would have been filed in 2002, be up June 5th, 2003.
So maybe the wetland scientist seal stamp is another waiver, right?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Explanation.
Well, I mean, if there's no wetlands, I don't think it would be needed then, would it?
But they're showing some on the plan.
Well, if,
It was, and that was, so, and the reason it was there is because we're trying to carry as much forward from the 2021 site plan, and there was a septic design included with that. And that's another one, the wetland the DES septic rules, and what you can show as what poorly drained versus poorly drained, is different than what the Wetland Bureau. They work in the same building, I don't know why, but, they have different definitions, and they say a septic designer can say that's poorly drained. But a wetland scientist might come out and say, no, it's not.
I was, sorry, Drew, I was looking at the one that says not a wetland. It says.
Yeah, that one,
The only reason I'm suggesting that is because you've got the 75-foot wetland setback to the composting area, and it's just, if there's not gonna be a, stamp and seal on that, then it seems like.
I'm happy to just kind of, to dot the i's and cross the t's, ask for that waiver. I feel like we're trying to be as cognizant here as possible, so like, I think we're showing that we can make it work and be a little bit conservative and say, hey, we know that the septic designer said there's potentially wet soils here, not a wetland scientist, because they wouldn't be able to. I think it's more of a conservative approach that we're gonna show it, maybe even a setback that we don't need to show, so. I'm fine with that.
See this right here.
Yeah. That's all grass.
This goes down here. It's about 4 foot deep of broken brick concrete.
Yeah.
Other comments from the board, questions? Blair, do you have any other?
I don't think there's anything outstanding from my comments. What do you see, as far as the lighting,
Oh, yeah.
for the site?
Interior lighting, we'll turn on and off as needed. I think there's no plan to have, I don't think you plan to have any building mounted siding, because it actually affects the chicken's ability to sleep, so you don't want any overcast.
Yes, there's no outside lighting.
Is it realistic to assume though you might have like a single small, like essentially an entry door light?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's-
I mean,
There's no tall,
No.
site lighting?
nothing like that.
Yeah.
My original building has lighting on all 4 corners.
Okay.
I can see most of the property from that.
Okay.
There's no need for additional outside lighting. I'd put that up to stop these from taking my stuff.
I have a question, and I'm not sure if it's entirely relevant, but where you've got the road for your logging and lumbering going basically through the middle there, I'm just wondering if having the chickens be free ranging while you're moving heavy equipment back and forth or logs or whatever, you know, is that going to create any sort of hazard?
Run from that thing.
I know,
Yeah,
chickens
yeah,
are dumb.
they really run.
Yeah.
You can hear that over every chicken in the place. But I put up an electric fence that goes all the way up the west side, comes around and comes right back to the corner, I was 8 feet short, to the back of the building, where the building would be. So the chickens can't go around and get on the other side of the property is what I'm trying to prevent. So they really won't have access to the right side. At least not out back there, you know?
Any other questions from the board?
What's the square area of your site disturbance, the purplish dotted line?
I actually, that including the disturbance under phase one, we are at, I think I did the math, it was 87,000 square feet. Of that, about 15% is impervious, most of it is open space. We can add that as if that's something the board would like us to put on the final plan, we can add a note to that.
That'd be helpful, just so we know it's not an AOT.
Right, that was the reason I looked at it, to make sure I didn't trigger AOT, because this, even though it's a multi-phase project, if I had triggered it, this whole thing would have opened up into AOT.
And the, construction of new agricultural facilities is limited to 20,000 square feet before you need an AOT for that as well. And I think you are under that with the two buildings and the composting area. But it would be helpful to note that as well on the plans.
Sure, yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, you can ask a question.
Is that how much square footage for the free range area? 15% of 7,000, is that what I heard?
Oh, I mean, that would account for like everything, even towards the road and stuff, like the open grass area, because that was disturbed as part of, it was revegetated as part of phase one. Still counts as disturbance under the state size. I mean, the free range area, kind of identified on the plan north, so above the buildings and looking at the plan, that's probably in the 20 to 25,000 clear. I mean, they now, as you know, they'll go between buildings, they'll kind of go wherever they want, but the kind of area that we're kind of pushing there, there'll just be a large open vegetated area, is 20 to 25,000 square feet.
You fencing that,
And that'll be fenced in as a combination of the chain link and the movable electric fence, depending on the logging op. If he's moving logs or something, he can push the fence to keep him out of the road.
Okay. We are going to move to written testimony first, and then we'll open the public hearing. I have quite a stack in front of me, so I will read into the record. Some of these have supporting documents that I won't be reading. Some of them include pictures that I can pass around to the board as well. So the first one that I have is from May 11th. This is from, it's a voicemail transcript. It says, hi, it's May 11th at 8:00 a.m. My name is Laura Hilbert. I'm a Nottingham resident calling in regards to the planning board case 26-007, the application from Precision Cut Lumber. I want to express that I do not support allowing the changes requested from this business. My first question is how this would even work, given that they're in a commercial or industrial zone, which does not allow for agricultural activities 1,000 feet back from the road. Maybe I'm interpreting the master plan incorrectly, but it just doesn't seem zoned for chicken coops, which are clearly defined in the plan as agricultural. Additionally, there's other studies that show chicken farming has a great effect on groundwater, and that this area already has 2 groundwater hazards marked on the groundwater hazard map. And I don't think it's fair to residents to be burdened with this much pollution. I'm also concerned about my well, and everyone in town depends on a well, so it's obviously a big issue for the town. And given the best management practices for agriculture in New Hampshire, farms should minimize runoff and leaching. How has this company said they'll do that? Lastly, I have concerns about avian flu and salmonella, as well as air pollution. I ask that you please take these concerns into consideration when determining the outcome of this proposal. Thank you. first one. Okay, second one here is from May 10th, 2026, from Nathan Fury. Dear Planning Board members, I am writing to provide my understanding of the zoning and environmental considerations relevant to the Precision Cut Lumber LLC case, and to respectfully ask that these factors be fully evaluated in your decision-making process. According to page 3 to 5 of the 2011 Nottingham Master Plan, it states that most of Nottingham is zoned as residential agricultural, except for the areas that include the town center and a commercial industrial district along US Route 4. It then defines commercial industrial as this district extends 1,000 feet back from each side of US Route 4 for its whole length in Nottingham. Permitted uses include residential, including multifamily, wholesale and retail establishments, service facilities such as eating and lodging, and professional offices, as well as institutional uses such as government buildings and educational facilities. This district has a minimum lot size of 2 acres with varying dimensional standards for industrial and commercial. Industrial uses must be set back 150 feet from the front line and 100 feet from all other boundaries. Commercial must be set back 100 feet from all boundaries. Maximum lot coverage is 50%. Further in the Nottingham Master Plan on page 312, chicken coops are defined as agricultural activities. Based on this information, my interpretation is that the Precision Cut Lumber LLC is zoned commercial industrial for 1,000 feet back from Route 4. According to the deed, the property extends approximately 1,844 feet back on one side and approximately 1,768 feet on the other. This means that the majority of the property lies within the commercial industrial zone where agricultural uses such as chicken coops are not permitted. This leads me to question the validity of the request as a whole. If my interpretation is correct and this proposal is valid in asking for these allowances, I want to voice that I do not support this proposal. The Planning Board has also been provided with a manual of best management practices for agriculture in New Hampshire. These guidelines emphasize minimizing runoff and leaching into surrounding groundwater. When these best practices are considered alongside the study by Dr. Balestro regarding the USA Springs proposal, also previously sent to the board, it becomes clear that the Little River watershed covering 12 square miles could be significantly affected by runoff. The Little River is also a tributary of the Lamprey River, a federally designated wild and scenic river. Additionally, Nottingham's groundwater hazards map already identifies 2 groundwater hazard properties that already exist near this location. Research consistently shows that poultry farming contributes to water pollution. It is not reasonable to ask residents who rely on groundwater in this area to be overburdened by the cumulative pollution of multiple environmental hazards. Communities often oppose poultry operations for concerns of groundwater contamination, air pollution, and odor issues, all of which have been linked to respiratory illness, exposure to harmful microorganisms, and pathogens such as avian influenza and salmonella. This study shows that antimicrobial resistance in groundwater can be detected in private wells nearly 2 miles from poultry operations. In a town where every household relies on a private well, this represents a substantial potential risk. Sincerely, Nathan Fury, resident of Nottingham. Okay, and we have another letter dated May 6th from Susan P. Mooney. Chair Drew Stevens and board members, as a teenager, each year I raised about 200 hens, capons, and broilers under the 4-H and Future Farmers of America program. They were free to roam about in accommodations constructed by our dad in the old cow barn where we lived. I had an egg root and we sold older hens, capons, and broilers as well. I received several awards for these projects, so I am familiar with poultry farming. In this application before the board, the poultry would be free roaming during the day and moved into the buildings at night. The size of the space allotted to one chicken calculates to 1.86 plus or minus square feet or 22.32 square inches per hen. During the site walk held on April 15th, no mention of roosts nor nesting boxes inside the buildings were stated. I recommend to the board and applicant that UNH Extension is contacted to inquire about best practices for space allotted per bird, manure management, and other considerations. Respectfully, Susan P. Mooney. Okay, next one is dated May 5th. It's a voicemail transcript. Good afternoon, Tracy. My name is Ross Hartman. It is 2:20 on Tuesday, the 5th of May. I am the owner of 119 Old Turnpike Road, and I know there's a flurry of activity going on with 123 and some of the proposed development that the owner over there wants to do. And I know there's a hearing coming up. I just wanted to see if I could talk to somebody from the planning board about a little bit of the lay of the land and what the owner is trying to do and how some of that is at least viewed and regulated. So that's it, nothing crazy. I just wanted to have a quick conversation. Thanks. Okay, I have a copy of a complaint to the building department from Jeff Salara or Salava, I can't quite read it, 28 Lincoln Drive, dated April 29th. It says, having too many chickens creates groundwater contamination, increased vermin population, increased coyote, fox, bear, and other predators, unhealthy conditions for the birds, chickens in parentheses, potential for disease. Okay, I have another correspondence from Alexandra Neff dated April 20th. I am asking that you send this out to each of the members and also that it be read at their next meeting. If you have any questions, please contact me. Thank you sincerely for your assistance, Alexandra Neff. And attached is sorry, I'm trying to make sense of what this is. Okay, this is attached written testimony. The Planning Board and Zoning Board of Adjustment are directed by RSA 672 through 678. Salient parts of RSA 674-32C and RSA 674-55 are quoted below. Included is 674-32C, agricultural uses of land. Nothing in the subdivision or in RSA 674-32B shall exempt new, reestablished, or expanded agricultural operations or activities from generally applicable building and site requirements such as dimensional standards, setbacks, driveway and traffic regulations, parking requirements, noise, odor, or vibration restrictions, or sign regulations, provided, however, that in circumstances where their literal application would effectively prohibit an agricultural use or activity allowed by the subdivision or would otherwise be unreasonable in the context of agricultural use or activity in accordance with the provisions of RSA 672-1, Part 3B, the Board of Adjustment, Building Code Board of Appeals, or other applicable local board, after due notice and hearing, shall grant a waiver from such requirement to the extent necessary to reasonably permit the agricultural use or activity, and then bolded, unless such waiver would have a demonstrated adverse effect on public health or safety or on the value of adjacent property, such waiver shall continue only as long as utilized for the permitted agricultural use or activity. And in parentheses, emphasis mine. The Planning Board received a number of complaints from neighboring properties at their April 8th, 2026 meeting. Mr. Demange outlined that that meeting, actions he would take to address abutters' concerns, and he would comply with the Department of Agricultural's best practices. However, that does not mean that two boards that have jurisdiction over this request can ignore their duties established under this statute. Then the RSA 674-55 wetland statute is quoted in bold. It says, nothing in the subdivision shall be construed to limit the powers otherwise granted under this chapter for municipalities to plan land use and enact regulations based on consideration of environmental characteristics, vegetation, wildlife habit, open space, drainage, potential for flooding, and protection of natural resources, including critical or sensitive areas or resources and groundwater. Goes on, scant information has been given to the zoning board or planning board on the animals to be housed on the property, and more importantly, what would be done to prevent runoff of their waste when the chickens are allowed free range. Mr. Demange's property is map 4, lot 1-1, and the abutting property, map 4, lot 2, has wetlands identified on it a few thousand feet to the west of Mr. Demange's property. Map 4 and lot 6 and or 10 is an aquifer that a group in Nottingham and another in Barrington worked a decade to prevent from having potability problems or affecting the flow of water downstream, the Little River as well as the Lamprey River. Dr. Thomas P. Ballestero, PhD, and a bunch of other things, did testing and provided 24 reasons why USA Spring should not be allowed to pump water and why that aquifer should be protected. Based on all that I've said above, I am requesting that this be read at the next meeting and hope that the Planning Board will deny the request of case 26-007, SPR Precision Cut Lumber, Alexandra Neff. Okay. Also attached was a report from Dr. Ballestero I am not going to read this report. It was, I believe, sent to the board via email, and if anyone on the board right now would like to review it, we can do so. Okay. Have one here from, okay, no, that's the same one. Never mind. Okay, I've got one dated May 6th from Sean and Cami Parenteau, Custom Welding and Fabrication, 127 Old Turnpike Road. Hello, we would like to submit this information, both the document and the zip drive attached here regarding case 26-007 as our formal disagreement. We would urge more questions regarding this business and all its operations. We also would urge all members of the planning board to check out Precision Cut Lumber's website for their current operations, just to make sure they are aligned with the town's regulations. We have 2 zip drives of supporting pictures that we will email separately as they are too large to be attached here. There is a printed attachment of pictures if the board wants to review those. Additional testimony from Sean Parenteau. No date on this one. My name is Sean Parenteau, and I am the owner of Custom Welding and Fabrication Incorporated and the trustee to Pat and Deb LLC that owns the land of said business at 127 Old Turnpike Road. I'm also an abutter to Precision Cut Lumber LLC at 123 Old Turnpike Road. After the April 8th meeting, I have even more health concerns for myself and my 7 employees. Last summer, for the first time in 24 years that we've owned the building, we had to close our bay doors due to the foul smell and tremendous amount of flies that suddenly appeared. Now to hear that people have gotten seriously ill living in close proximity to poultry farms. The way everything is located allows the breeze to channel right to us. There is a fairly large parking area between our building and the boundary. From what I can see is center of a 3-foot wide drainage ditch for the roof and parking lot. There's nasty standing water in there now, as it could use a good cleaning, but due to the circumstances makes it difficult. Last summer when it dried out, the chickens would hang out in it along with all over our property. He has recently put up an electric fence, which seems too close to the boundary, if not on ours. I feel like there should be some amount of buffer between his fence and that drainage. Never mind, not on my property. Every time my employees get into their vehicles, it reeks of bird mess. Now he's harassing my employees about parking near his fence on my property. There is a utility pole clearly on his property that goes to my building, but has been there at least since the early 80s and has a deeded right. We have been in contact with Eversource and have given them our information, and if they feel they need to move the pole, then they will do so, but I am leaving it up to Eversource. I strongly feel this needs to be dealt with before any further development. If he's legally even allowed to have a poultry, there has to be a cap on how many he can have. I would advise you take caution with anything you approve for them. It's obvious to me that they like to push boundaries in many ways. I know there was a recent walkthrough, and no, I did not go as I have to deal with it at least 5 days a week. I do wish I was there to point out my concerns. I would also hope that all the board members would come by our shop to either just do a drive-through, stop and smell some fresh air, or swing in and talk to myself or my wife Cami before making any approvals. If the gate is closed, just give the camera a little wave and walk around the gate. I'm not looking for trouble. He is creating it and is negatively impacting my business. I have attached any information I have and can be reached via email, work phone, or cell phone. Blah, 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 blah. Thank you for your time and hope to hear from you or see you soon. Sean Parenteau. Okay. Extra. Okay, and last written testimony dated today, Wednesday, May 13th, from Kristen Lamb. Hi, Drew and Blair. I'm writing with several concerns about the application for a chicken farm coming forward to the planning board tonight. I've tried to summarize below and have included a couple of attachments for reference. Please let me know if you have any questions, and thank you for taking public input and concerns. Highly pathogenic avian influenza is still a major concern for wildlife in our region, which can thus impact mosquito-borne illness, water quality, and exposure to rodent disease for humans. This strain derives from high-volume poultry farming, and we are in a region of the highest biodiversity for the state of New Hampshire, as defined by New Hampshire Fish and Game. What is this farm's plan for ensuring separation of poultry feces, respiratory droplets, dander, etc. from wild birds and the habitat they are on? Applicant appears to be operating outside the scope of the approved site plan application and has expanded use and structures without required planning board approval. Original plans refers to plans submitted for case 21-006 SIT. Location is not zoned agricultural, rather commercial industrial only. Appears many structures added after prior site plan approval are not adhering to the 100-foot setback. Proposed composting area is also within the 100-foot setback. Requesting confirmation if filling of wetlands has occurred without town or state approval. Original plan shows wetland complex at the southern portion of the property, which extends onto a budding parcel tax map 4, lot 1, was greater in size than the current plans show. Original plan shows second wetland in the middle of lot with identified building setback on original plan. Appears existing gravel drive may have resulted in violations of zoning ordinance, Article 3B, filling of wetlands, infringement upon wetland setbacks, removal of required vegetative buffer. Please carefully weigh whether this proposal meets the intention of the zoning ordinance, specifically as laid out in Article 1, Purpose 2, 3, and 5. Ensure ecological and aesthetic considerations. Assure health, safety will be met and maintained. Assure use does not have deleterious effects on other property. Confirm New Hampshire DOT has reviewed and approved expanded use as driveway permit is the purview of state due to direct access to Route 4. Nottingham site plan regulations also give broad authority to the planning board to require applicants adhere to the standards of the town. Site plan review regulations, Article 4, Section 4.1, in the interpretation by the board and application, the provisions of these regulations shall be held to the minimum requirements for the promotion of public health, safety, and general welfare. The board may seek information or requirements in addition to the above these regulations in circumstances requiring greater protection for health, safety, and welfare of Nottingham citizens and the best interest of the town of Nottingham. Recommend environmental impact assessment to be conducted by qualified third party with specific experience to poultry farming practices and waste management, Section 10.6, authorization under 10.6, Part 7. Has the applicant applied for and been approved for an alteration of terrain permit from NHDES? Plan submitted for current application appears to show a total disturbed area over 100,000 square feet. Request applicant confirm total disturbed area. No state approval for AOT is shown on the plans under site notes 5. Regardless of any additional proposed disturbance, if current operations have disturbed more than 100,000 square feet, NHDES should be notified and the applicant required to adhere to provisions even for current operations. Thank you, Kristen. Okay, I was just given an additional letter dated Monday, May 11th. Good morning, please include the attached letter to those being read at the public hearing on May 13th, 2026. Thank you, Jeff. My name is Jeff Hill. I live at 5 Lincoln Drive. The following are reasons in 3 categories for which the Planning Board of Nottingham, New Hampshire must reject Precision Cut Lumber site plan application. First, zoning violations. First bullet, prohibited use. Poultry raising in an agricultural use not permitted in the commercial industrial zone. Second bullet, no zoning board relief, no variance or special exception has ever been granted for this agricultural operation. Third bullet, illegal expansion, expanding from 1,600 to 3,000 chickens and adding 2 5,600 square foot buildings is a major intensification of a non-conforming use. Fourth bullet, planning board limits. The planning board cannot approve a site plan for a use that violates zoning. Any disputed, unclear, or contested interpretation must be decided by the zoning board, not the planning board. Second, procedural defects. First bullet, improper application. The applicant must go to the zoning board before seeking site plan approval. Second bullet, incomplete submission. Without zoning relief, the application is legally incomplete and cannot be accepted. Third bullet, wrong sequence. Zoning board first, planning board second. This application skips the required first step. Third, impact on district and community. First bullet, odor and air quality. Large poultry houses generate persistent odors. Second bullet, noise and ventilation. Industrial fans and ventilation systems create continuous noise. Third bullet, traffic and trucks. Feed deliveries, egg transport, and waste removal increase heavy vehicle traffic. Fourth bullet, waste and runoff risks. Poultry waste poses contamination risk to groundwater and nearby properties. Fifth bullet, district purpose. Livestock operations conflict with the intended uses of the commercial industrial zone. Legal bottom line. First bullet, zoning controls. If a use is prohibited, the planning board has no authority to approve it. Second bullet, zoning board jurisdiction. Only the zoning board can authorize a non-permitted agricultural use. Third bullet, required action. The board must decline jurisdiction or deem the applicant incomplete and direct the applicant to the zoning board. The planning board cannot approve the application. It's only legally defendable. It's the only legally defendable course of action. Okay, I believe that is all I have for written testimony. So now I'm going to open the meeting to public input, if the applicant wouldn't mind taking a seat. So comments and questions from the public should be directed to me, not at the applicant or his representative or anybody else in the room. We do have quite a few people here, and I'm going to limit testimony to 3 minutes each. So please, again, if you had written testimony, hopefully you submitted it. And please, just hit the highlights of any concerns or questions that you may have. So first, I am going to ask for questions or comments from those in favor of the application. Do we have anybody here who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Okay, now I'm going to ask for those who want to speak in opposition to this application. Do we have members from the public who would like to speak in opposition to this application? I see a hand over there in the blue shirt. If you could please come up, state your name and address, and then provide your testimony.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Deborah Nelson, 68 Priest Road, Nottingham. And at the end of my testimony, I've been asked by Denise from Freeman Hall to bring a few questions from her because she was not able to, Ms. Simmons was not able to attend tonight. So I will be brief. I think I echo many of the concerns you've heard. One thing I do want to clarify, on the April 26th site walk, the concern was raised about chickens flying to escape predators and could potentially cause a risk to public safety given the proximity to Route 4 and the traffic there and the speed limit there. And it was the concern was dismissed out of hand, saying, oh, chickens can't fly or they don't fly that much. Well, I have an article updated February 10th, 2025 by an horticulturist who is also an animal specialist, and she contradicts that. In fact, chickens do fly, and they've reached a height around 50 feet and can fly up to 10 feet, but they've also been recorded to be able to fly in 15 seconds, a distance of 300 feet. So my first question is, what was the distance between Route 4 and where these chickens were going to be held? And I just heard tonight that one is 200 feet and one is 300 feet. Well, maybe they won't, maybe these particular chickens won't, but what if they do? Are we risking, an accident of predators coming and spooking chickens and then, all going for Route 4? I don't know, but it's certainly a consideration. Secondly, So I wanted to know the height of the proposed buildings, and this is a little side comment. I could not find where all the documents were posted for this meeting. I spent considerable time trying to find where all the testimony was, and also hoping to see access to the updated site plan so I could eliminate some of my questions or get some answers. So I would just request respectfully that there's a way to navigate so people can clearly see where the documents are associated with the case. I don't know how you do that, but highlight or something, because I could not find it. So I still have the question, how tall are these buildings? I know what the dimensions for length and width are, but is there does Precision Cut Lumber intend at some point to build a second floor or a third floor, which could potentially double or triple the amount of chickens that could be housed there? And if that is the case, would the board have to approve such expansion of added floors? Or could they not go with the permanent structure, but scaffolding instead. Just build some scaffolding layers that could also potentially double or triple the number of chickens. And if that's the case, would the board have to permit that, or is it non-permanent, so they can just do it? So that's my question. And then that leads to what other people have asked, so what's the limit? How many chickens can you get to before it's too many? And what is the town's opportunity to place a limit on that?
You have 10 seconds.
Okay, I'm just about done. Does the board plan to require a life cycle assessment for the prevention and, if applicable, remediation of contamination of soil and water, including wells, in a defined radius of the operation from bird poop contamination? Such an assessment should be mandatory given the risk of pollution. The cost could be borne by the business and monitored by the board. The monitoring plan should also include a plan with timelines to mitigate any issues that arise and steps to prevent further contamination. And lastly, what is the applicant's plan to clean the runoff water in whatever structure it's contained? Because I imagine it gets pretty dirty, so how does that get clean? And, so that's the question. And then I guess I could, if I'm out of time, I could
You're out of
submit.
time.
I could
Can I
submit.
give her my time to continue?
Me too. I second.
I don't think so. You have to come up and give your own testimony. And you can't read other people's testimony. It should have been submitted as written testimony if you couldn't be here tonight. So I apologize, but your time's done. We have.
Okay, I will submit it as written testimony.
Can't
Thank
she
you.
speak at the end, if the allotted time, isn't there a max of like an hour, and if that's not taken, she can come back and speak?
No, I'm setting a limit of 3 minutes per person testimony-wise, so you gotta make sure that you can fit all your points into that so that we're not here all night. We've got too many people.
Last time you did allow people to share.
Last time I allowed only 2 minutes per person as well,
And you
so
allow people to,
we're doing 3 minutes per person tonight and we're not giving time away, okay? So if you would like to come up now and give testimony, you can do that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Please state your name and address.
Andrew Turco, 28 Revolutionary Lane, Nottingham. Good evening. I wrote down a few questions, and I will read them aloud. I'd actually like the chair to read them because he's such a good orator. Read a lot tonight, so. From the last meeting, I asked a question about an impact study to the surrounding neighborhoods and abutters. And in this impact study, I think we have to assume the maximum amount of chickens that the state allows. Judging by the testimony tonight, it seems like we're being educated on how many chickens. We're talking about 3,000, but there could be 20,000, something like that. In response to the regards to the runoff, is there a civil engineer on the runoff control and containment? Is it stamped by a PE? And is the 100-year flood design to protect the little river included in that? Seems like we've had the 100-year flood over the last decade. Let's see. Who regulates the chicken grass mix? Who's gonna keep an eye on that? What's the gist of the unread report? I'd just like to know what that is. And what's the vision of our community? And the reason I bring that up is this, and if I could read this out loud. The planning board has 3 roles or spheres of activity. 1, the planning role, in which the board establishes a vision for the future of its community and identifies the steps necessary to achieve that vision. 2, the legislative role, in which the board proposes ordinance and enacts regulations, the rules by which to achieve the vision, and the regulatory role, in which the board applies the ordinances and rules to specific situations in fulfillment of the vision. So the question is, for the community, is this potential chicken farm the vision of our community? And if we were gonna go by this meeting tonight, and by percentage of people who are in opposition of this chicken farm, it's overwhelmingly not the vision. So I would say this, that with all the testimony given back and forth tonight, maybe it's a simpler question for the board based on the Nottingham website of what the role of the planning board is. Is this the vision of Nottingham?
They can meet all the criteria they need to meet, but is it the vision? It's right on the Nottingham website, so. And it sucks being nervous, being a public speaker. But anyway.
All right. Thank you for your testimony.
Thanks for your time.
Other members from the public wishing to speak? There.
Hi, Mary Crockett, 5 Tremblay Drive. It's been brought up before, I'm very concerned about the runoff from this, the manure sitting on a piece of cement or not sitting on a piece of cement. I think every farm has to address that runoff. It's a big deal, and we have a water source close by. I think that really is an important point that we need to address. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony. Other members from the public wishing to speak?
Hi. Cami Lushner, 31 North River Lake Road. I did submit something in writing late this evening, and I gave Tracy a copy. I just want to call your attention to an attachment I put on there. I'm glad we're finally hearing about this 20,000 limit, because what it is actually is you can sell up to 20,000 birds a year. It's not a limit on how many you can have. You can sell 20,000 birds a year, meat birds, to restaurants or consumers directly, and there's no state or federal oversight. In addition, you can have 3,000 laying hens, but you could have 30,000 birds and only sell 20,000 of them. So, as the applicant said tonight, Nottingham doesn't have any restrictions, and he can do what he wants. I just want to call attention to the best management practices, since we've been talking about that a lot. I already see a lot of things that are not being done on those best management practices, which is a relatively short list. It calls for the evaluation of the facility for environmental constraints, and identifies soil and surface drainage, the depth of the bedrock, setbacks, and prevailing winds. It calls for properly constructed storage facilities for when land application is not suitable, so when the manure or composted material is not being applied. There have to be properly constructed storage facilities away from surface water in particular. There has to be steps taken to control vectors, including flies and odors, to prevent public health problems and nuisance. I don't know if any of you recall the last meeting, but the flies was one of the things that was poo-pooed, is, oh, well, you're gonna have flies if you have chickens. And then one of the other things was to establish a practice of routine soil testing and record keeping. I think that's also particularly important, not just on a go forward, but if this is an operation that's been in place for 2 years, and we have free range chickens where the waste hasn't been picked up and no plans to pick it up in the future, what is the existing conditions of the soil? I'm really concerned about what I feel are a lot of less than straightforward answers, or less than forthright answers to what the plan is here. And consideration for the neighbors and the community at large. I think that there's a lot that's being telegraphed about whether we really plan to care about the community and our neighbors. And I hope that the board's paying attention to it, because it's going to be hard to unring the bell if we have a serious environmental impact once it's already happened. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Hi, Patrick Kilbreth. I'm gonna be real quick this time. You guys are the planning board. These guys come forth to submit a plan. Once again, a lot of holes in the plan. You know, this is the second meeting we've had, and you're asking a bunch of questions these guys can't answer. Once again, it's, we think this is what we can do. It's just, there's no plan. There's still no plan. And this is a major thing, major decision, and I really think you guys need to consider this, you guys asked some really good questions, and once again, we gotta take his word for it, on some of this water runoff and, the conservation land and the wetlands, and I don't know. I think we just need some more answers to this. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Other members from the public wishing to speak?
Evening, Brian Arcuri, 22 Revolutionary Lane. that's, most of my comment is exactly that, is we all sat here April 8th, had lots of questions, addressed the runoff, the air pollution, all these things, looking for answers. We're back here, and I don't think any of those answers have been addressed sufficiently. The only thing I can tell from the plan is that we moved a concrete pad further away from a next door neighbor, which is a great improvement. It doesn't address any of the other concerns that everybody had with the air and the water. Also, the questions that were asked tonight were all great questions to the applicant and his representative, but the answers were all very vague. Well, the intent is this, and the plan is this, and phase one is this. It doesn't mean anything. The answer is this. This is what we're gonna do, and here's our plan. Okay, we'll accept it or we won't. But everything's very vague, and it reduces trust in the applicant, the project. I don't trust yet that what is written down on paper in this plan will be followed. You got a plan, stick to it. Everything's very vague. There hasn't been enough progress in the last 5 weeks, I think, on the plan to make us all feel warm and trustworthy that this is gonna go well. The only other thing I'll bring up, and it's not related to this, but it is in one of the attachments on the planning board website, is something we addressed on the April 8th meeting, is that construction already began on these buildings without a permit. And on April 23rd, I believe, the applicant was given a cease and desist order from our town, which I agree with. Glad it happened. But that's not giving us trust that the applicant will follow the rules of our town if they've already received, they already couldn't follow the rules earlier. So more answers. We'll keep coming back and we'll keep doing this and the whole town keeps showing up. Let's get more confidence that this plan is actually gonna work and we can control runoff and air pollution and yada yada. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Others wishing to speak? Okay, is there anybody who wishes to speak neither in favor nor in opposition? Or we don't have any like town staff testimony or anything like that, right? Okay. Okay, it's 8:22. I am going to close the public hearing.
Can I ask
Sorry.
one question? I'm just, at the beginning of my Arthur Walsh, 3 Revolutionary Lane, at the beginning of the meeting, you came in and said it was legal. And then we're hearing this is an industrial commercial zone and it's not legal. So I guess I wanna know what's the real answer.
It's 8:22. The public input is closed now. I will invite the applicant come back. So first thing I want to start off with is that all of the cases that the planning board has before them are on if you go to the town's website and go to the planning board section, the very first big link is current applications before the board. You click on that and then you'll get a list of all the current applications that are in front of the board, including all of the testimony I just read off, all the site plans, everything with each case. And there's also another section that's on the sidebar for completed applications if you're looking for historic information of cases that have come before the board. Just wanted to point that out first before I let the applicant respond.
Yeah, so I think I'll go through the highlights and the board can kind of let me know, I guess which ones you'd like me to respond to. I think
Drew?
Yeah.
Do you want to answer the last gentleman's thing?
Oh.
Basically is the motion, I mean, relatively simple, but.
Yeah, right. Since agricultural use is not explicitly prohibited in the commercial industrial zone, it is an allowed use because there's a state RSA that says if a zoning ordinance does not specifically exclude that use, it has to be allowed. And our zoning ordinances do not say that. I know that the master plan speaks to it in a way that makes it seem like that's the case, but the master plan is not a legal document in the way that the zoning ordinances are. So our zoning ordinances would have to explicitly exclude agricultural use in the commercial industrial zone in order for it not to be allowed.
Did you folks get a legal opinion on that?
We did. We did. Okay.
Thank you. I'll kind of go through, I don't know if you want me to try and, I captured most of them. I don't know some of them if the board wants to discuss, but I'll kind of hit the easy ones. Height of building, per the plan that I was able to kind of bring you guys some hard copies of tonight, we're in the 19 to 20 foot range. We're limited by the fact that this roof structure will sit on top of the 8 foot tall storage containers and then at a 4 to 12 pitch, and you work up from there. And it's, I think I'm calling out 19 on the plan. It really depends on like the base plate, 22 and a half. So I'll say 19 to 22 and a half. A lot of that depends on, as when we prepare building permit plans, the way in which those structural trusses sit on top of that. So there might be a need to build up that structure, basically create a platform for them to sit on. That's all required as part of the building permit process to define the details of those plans, structural supports. One thing, he has already spoken with the building inspector, asking what they'll need to do, and he will need those plans to be reviewed. The trusses are already prepared by an engineer, but the building inspector has asked him to have an actual, an engineer say, how are those attached to the storage containers as a whole? So that will be required as part of a building permit process. I think we've talked about the limits of chickens. I mean, the business that Wade does now is egg production. We feel that the size of the structure and the free range space supports the 3,000 chickens. He is incentivized to stay underneath that because once you crest 3,001 laying hens, it puts him into another category of oversight. So he just like anybody else with X number of chickens under 3,000, he'll be under the same regulations.
Question about that. When who enforces that? If you have 3,000 versus 3,001, is the Department of Agriculture coming out to? Because when you're under 3,000, you're not getting inspected or anything, right? So is that up to the agricultural, the person running the chicken farm to report that they have over 3,000 at a certain point?
I don't know if he knows. I looked into a little. It's essentially either self-reporting or if say there's a complaint and a building inspector comes out and looks and does a count, then that's an enforceable action. But
Plus I'm kind of gonna expedite this thing on myself because, like I said, the second building I want to be a hatchery, which is chickens I'm gonna sell purebred. That I have to be licensed, which kind of rings a bell to say, hey, okay, now they come in and monitor me more. Certain portion of the chickens get blood tested. So a lot of stuff comes into play, which I'm bringing on myself. But for right now, I'm just trying to make the money to pay for the rest of that, which I'm sure you guys can understand.
That's good? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's talk about that. I think several comments about the runoff. I think I talked about that with the board. We haven't provided in the way of a stormwater analysis, in terms of an actual detailed model essentially. There's a question of the PE. I am a PE. I have been for 6 years. My stamp will be on these plans. It's required by the town. The pond is really, in my opinion, probably oversized for what I need. I think we're complying with the town's goals here. If the board feels there needs to be additional information under that section of the code, we can discuss that. But we feel this is an improvement over, just doing a meadow buffer. As stated as kind of the agricultural use here, much of it, and this is kind of going to the next point, we don't seem, my intent is not to be vague or have holes in the plans or can't answer. Honestly, a lot of it is because the town doesn't have regulations on it, and that's no fault of anybody up to this point. But so much of this, the use, now that obviously we have confirmation with the legal opinion, and it was our position before, the state RSAs govern, and then, obviously they encourage the use of BMPs for the operations of that farm. So that's why there was discussion of limiting the chickens. I don't believe the board can, if there's no provision in the town to do so. It falls to the state guidelines, state and federal guidelines if you get big enough, but the intent is not to be vague. It's just there's certain things that, like this business, the poultry business, he could do 1,000 birds. The next year he could do 3,000 birds. It can fluctuate. Obviously, he still needs to fall under those BMPs. Because of the 674-32C, we're required to come before this board and kind of essentially, go through this process. Especially because there's, we're disturbing 30,000 square feet as well, so that's part of it. I don't know, there was a question about, or a comment about not answering questions or like having answers that questioned. I mean, I certainly asked to the board, I think more questions were asked tonight, probably because of some new information that we provided in response to the first meeting and the site walk. So it's kind of, this process inherently is a little bit iterative as, eventually you get all your questions answered. So I certainly asked the board if there's something that you don't feel was answered in the framework of what we can, because again, the state law gives him a degree of flexibility in the operation of this business. And I don't believe the town has the authority there to like set that cap, and supersede state law. So obviously our goal here is to answer any questions through this process with the board. The stormwater, I guess we talked about the use. I think we've said the BMPs, I mean, even this, we're trying to build the manure area per the BMPs. Much of the operation, having this permanent structure is advised in the BMPs for the state with the poultry business. So our feeling is that we are trying to follow in the BMPs. The BMPs are a guide, understanding that not every farm can meet every single BMP to the letter of it. It's essentially if every farm could, I think the farms would look a lot different in this town and other towns. I have been we've been part of a project that is a dairy barn that triggered that 20,000 square foot threshold and had to go through state permitting, and they fell under a different state permit. But this is a smaller site and doesn't trigger that. So obviously our goal, and again, if there is even a degree of state oversight, if he does get to the point of doing essentially hatchlings and selling hatchlings, there would be somebody on the state side, and to say that they're not going to mention something if they don't see it, that's kind of their job. So we do feel that via this plan and through the process that required, that we're trying to show as many of the compliance with the BMPs as possible. It's not required, and nor really, whether it's on the stormwater commercial development side, those BMPs, or agricultural BMPs, no project can meet every single BMP 100%. Site constraint, a lot of different constraints prevent that from happening. There was obviously some other comments. I don't know if the board, is there anything that stood out to the board that you wanted me to address? Detail? The only question, while you're thinking of that, the only question, and maybe this is more to Blair, I was just trying to think ahead. I made a note here for the waiver, potentially asking for that, specifically the CWS stamp, because of that passed after the fact. Do you have an idea of which is that going to be under the 8.3 as well, which is kind of the plan requirements? There's one specific, isn't specifically, I feel like there's a section here that talks about the stamps. It says they need to be identified. Water bodies, streams, wetland, water courses, but it doesn't specifically say the stamps. But I know historically we obviously require stamps.
Yeah, as part of the submitted plan, so I would submit it underneath that unless I tell you otherwise. I don't know off the top of my head. I can go back and look.
Okay, I'll put one down here that I think is the closest thing, and While I was on the topic of waiver, I don't know if the board would want to discuss, we did submit because of the Blair staff report that we reviewed today, I think within like an hour, I turned around, I reviewed the section, the comment about the full site survey, so essentially the entire 31 acres to the back. I did prepare a waiver request. I brought hard copy, I emailed it to right after Blair sent his staff memo when I brought hard copies, but I would ask the board if it's something you're willing to entertain a waiver request, just because obviously if there's not if that isn't entertained, then that becomes a huge time / money consideration that we have to make. Mostly time. It's hard to do 31 acre survey. So if the board would be interested, and that has been submitted on the waiver request form itself, so.
It is in our case files for this case. You'll find it in there.
Yeah. I would agree that the board should at least talk about it and maybe possibly entertain voting on it. But we are ticking over the 2-hour mark.
Right.
And we do have a second hearing. We don't like to start, we actually don't start hearings after 9 PM. So, and there is some work left to be done. So there seems to be 2 outstanding things. Waiver and additional review.
What is the additional review, just to make sure I didn't, what would the specific additional review be, or by who?
Well, the board was guided on considering, agricultural consultation for meeting best management practices specific to the site for mitigation of impacts.
Was there any recommendation who would do that? I ask because I'm not aware of a agricultural specialist who their job is to review. I mean, I guess it would be reaching out. Is the request to contact like the state and get, or cooperative extension?
I reached out to Rockingham County Conservation District and got a name, reached out to them, and got an overview proposal. But without having had much time to do that, that was the extent of it.
Okay.
So it's not CMA engineer review, it's more specific to the agricultural use.
Okay, and that was, just so I'm clear, that was a recommendation to the board from?
It wasn't a recommendation, the guidance was stated that the board is able to do that through its site plan review process.
Under like other studies or something like that?
Precisely.
We can require third-party review, and the RSAs, say that unless such a waiver would have a demonstrated adverse effect on public health or safety, and none of us on this board can really assess the public health impacts of this project. So that's why we're potentially considering a third-party review to give us that information to better guide our decisions and recommendations.
So I assume that would be, if the board voted yes, then that would be, obviously, you said there was a proposal to do that from the Rockingham Conservation District?
I wouldn't call it a proposal, but it was a level of effort.
With a cost associated with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically just keep going till demand.
TB.
I need an answer.
Okay, I'm just making some notes here. So it's basically an agricultural assessment, just for lack of a better term.
So I think maybe we can take up the waiver discussion now to keep things moving forward. We do have it in our packets.
So the request is to not have to survey the back part of the parcel. It's a 31 and change acre parcel. It's quite large, and yeah, it's not being touched, and it is in line with requests that we've seen in the past.
Board have questions about the waiver?
I do. I'm feeling somewhat uncomfortable with this waiver. We're relying on a potential site plan from 2003, and we have no idea what's happened in the last 23 years on the site with respect to wetlands and drainage and existing conditions. And clearly right on here, there's wetland soils, and the manure compost area is shown right on top of there. And without having a more comprehensive survey and wetlands delineation and soils, I don't think we can adequately make a decision on whether that's even built or not built in a wetland, and we do have wetland setback. So I think waiving the survey and the full conditions of the planning board is a bad idea.
Ian, did you or your firm survey this site to submit this?
This was a survey completed by Landry Survey. This is the same, we are using the same exact survey base that was permitted for use by the board in 2021, which was the original site plan. So essentially we're asking to, this proposal is to amend the previous site plan, and we are still working within the limits that that plan, that survey covered.
I mean, you're required to submit a stamped survey plan.
Yeah, so I think, and we can speak with Pete about that, it's been, you know, the lot lines on here are surveyed lot lines, it's just, we're not going 31 acres to the back.
Right, but what about all of the known structures?
Yep. So, yeah, so the survey base plan is based on 2021.
There's been structures added since then.
Correct, and we've done some GPS location. I mean, I think ultimately if there's a stamp needed by Pete on a plan, then I need to speak with Pete about that. I obviously, it's his license. I'll update him on the project. He's probably watching, to be honest, right now, so.
Well, the request was to not have to survey the remainder. The assumption being that the disturbed area is surveyed and updated since 2021 to reflect current conditions. And seeing as how there's been at least one cease and desist for building without a permit, I think it'd be more than prudent to request.
Excuse me, I just want to clarify. I placed 4 metal containers, okay, where the building would be. Nothing's been fastened, nothing at all. That's not building.
In the eyes of the building inspector, it was, you were issued a cease and desist, so.
Well,
Since-
nothing's gone on since before he came there. He showed up 3 weeks after we had the conversation in this room. And
There's
I
been
didn't do
additions
anything
to the
else.
site that are not accurately surveyed on the site plan, which is required. You can ask for a waiver from the minimum of a site survey. But that's not what my understanding is you're asking for right now. You're asking for the remainder of the site. The presumption is that the front part area has been surveyed since 2021 to reflect existing conditions. So I would think that that would need to happen if it hasn't already. And if what I'm hearing is it hasn't.
I think we'll.
I'm asking for waivers for everything, so we can just deny this thing so we can go to court.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, the waiver before you, I think it sounds like, yeah, if we want to move forward, we'd have to ask for additional waivers. So, I mean, obviously I've heard the appetite. I don't think the board's gonna support the waiver at this time, so. I like I said, I need to speak with the previous surveyor of the project, or the surveyor of record on the project.
It was my assumption that per the regulations, a plan was submitted that was gonna be stamped by somebody taking ownership of what's on the site.
Yeah, it's a survey, yeah, the
But it's
portion of the
not though,
ground.
because it doesn't reflect what's there. You don't have anything since 2021 surveyed.
We have, so there has been a degree, so what, are you speaking about the 4 containers? Obviously that happened after we submitted our application. Or you're saying that.
I don't know this site off the top of my head.
I think I've heard.
For instance, the present chicken coop
Yeah,
is not on any of the plans that you ever submitted.
right, so
for
I
this
think, and
process.
that's,
That's as
I understand.
existing.
And the wetlands delineated from 2003 filled, not filled, we don't know what's there at this time. At what's, I mean,
Unfortunately-
23 years,
Honestly, I'm not
things change in
Hold on,
23
no,
years.
5 years ago, I
feel like
submitted
we
that
can't.
paperwork, and that's when, the chair at
I
the
think the
time
wetlands
said.
part has been addressed, because they've got a note on there telling us that it's been served, and he has the soils indicated. I just think you should choose a better, symbol instead of the wetland symbol. Since it's just soils that you're indicating, but
That's on the septic,
that's a
which.
visual.
That's the problem, is like this is a septic site, so I have a mix of parameters to define drain and poorly drained. But I understand, it's confusing for us at times too, but I understand. I think I need to speak with Pete, to your point. I understand there needs to be a stamp on the plan from the survey.
Yeah, I mean,
so-
I was just looking at it in the
I
surveyed property lines,
835.
including, what is it?
It's 835.
835.
is the full survey with site features. I do wanna state though that like, from a site soil perspective, when we say soils, this site does not qualify as needing a site-specific soil, which is a certified stamp that a soil scientist. So we show NRCS boundaries, which is what any site underneath 100,000 square foot threshold, unless a town specifically requires it, which Nottingham does not. Oddly enough, Lee requires a soil scientist to also be a wetland scientist, but you're not required to do a soil map if you're at any size project. So the soils will, in terms of soil mapping, it'll still be NRCS soils, because that's what's required by the town. We will obviously have to try and better clarify that action from 2003 that we have the after the fact permit for, and I will have to discuss with Pete, obviously dusting off the cobwebs so that he's prepared to stamp this plan.
So for now, we will not act on this waiver.
I think based on the board feedback, I would need to amend the waiver request for that if the board's gonna take action.
Okay.
I would suggest two separate waivers.
For the,
If you're gonna ask for a waiver from an updated survey from 2021 for the area that's being disturbed.
understood, yeah, that would be a separate waiver, yeah.
From the one that's asking for a waiver from the rest of the property.
Yeah, it's kind of a multi-level, right, which wasn't the intent initially, but I understand what you're saying.
Okay, so the other thing for the board to consider is a third-party review by an agricultural consultant on the various odor, pollution, groundwater runoff.
Wouldn't you only be able to give us a baseline though?
Sorry.
I mean, so the review, what I was understanding is that would be a baseline to see, because how is he gonna go there and tell if it's gotten worse or better by increasing? What exactly is the review gonna do?
I think what he would probably do is go to the site, take baseline measurements like you're talking, and then go to another area nearby without, without any of this sort of stuff, and do a comparison between the two.
I think a lot of what we're also looking for is recommendations for site-specific best management practices on how to mitigate impacts. For example, groundwater infiltration that could potentially pollute groundwater. What do you recommend to management practices to mitigate flies, to mitigate dust, to mitigate X, Y, and Z?
Okay, I mean, I just don't see how how that's gonna be effective before he's at the place of concern. He doesn't have that many chickens yet.
No, but I mean, part of our job here is to anticipate impacts based on the proposal put forth.
Okay, so you'd be taking a baseline, but you wouldn't be able to grow it to be able to tell if it's gotten worse or better, or if he needs to be stopped, or.
No, but what he could do is
he
could evaluate it and then say, okay, based on this design, what are the effects going to be?
Okay, you can tell that.
And Adam, one of the things that exists is that hopefully the stuff he provides to us, that the person provides to us, will answer a lot of the questions that the public has.
Yeah, and just provide recommendations for site improvements. I mean, we can take our best guess about where the best place is to put the manure storage, but he might have recommendations from years of experience about how best to do it. Right now, it just looks like a landscape yard that's gonna have those little drive-in, the front loaders, where you have mulch in one bay and soil in another, and so on and so forth. He might have a recommendation that, you know, is not so costly that it makes the operation, you know, cost prohibitive, but it makes it better. Right? Like it's a balance between mitigation, but making it an unviable project, right? There's a balance there that needs to be struck to having an expert in.
We've heard a lot of concerns, and I think it behooves us to try to get an expert opinion on those, because I don't think any of us are
I concur.
experts in this.
We have an obligation under the zoning ordinance purposes to provide for public safety, and there's been a lot of concerns voiced. And also under the site plan review, Article 2 purposes. So I'd like to make a move that we do secure additional agricultural review as proposed by Blair. And for the proposed project to protect the public safety and that if possible, get a baseline conditions of the site as is.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Severns. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? One abstain. Okay, that motion passes. So I think at this point, we should find a time to continue this case.
Our preference would be to just continue to the next meeting until I get more information on the study. And I guess we'll have to coordinate with them and find out, kind of learn more of, it's the first we're hearing of it, so we'll have to just get more information.
So you want to continue to May 27th?
Yeah, we'd like to just kind of, I mean, obviously, we're gonna try and stay on top of this, so we'll just work, and if it's something that we find out that it's just timing wise can't happen in that time, we'll give notice to the board of why. But we prefer to just kind of stay on the schedule.
Okay. So do I have a motion to continue case 26 007, thank you, to May 27th, 2026 at 6:30 PM?
Motion as stated.
You have a second?
Second.
All right, motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. We'll see you at the next meeting.
Blair, can you just forward that email, just information and email to me when you have a chance? Thank you.
Okay. Next up on the agenda.
We got 3,000 live animals.
Let's make sure we can turn the case.
It's all going against state law.
All right. So it's not quite 9 yet. I think we might have time to take this case.
The board can vote as long as it's started, but we can vote.
Okay, this is my case, so I'm recusing myself, and I will go before the board.
Danny, you're up. I'm up. All right, this is a public hearing regarding case number 26-008, site plan review, major home occupation, Stevens and Huggins at 3 Sherwood Lane. An application from Drew Stevens and Dallas Huggins requesting a site plan review. The intent of this application is to convert from an existing minor home occupation to a major home occupation. The affected property is located at 3 Sherwood Lane in Nottingham, New Hampshire, and is identified as tax map number 24, lot number 112, and number 117. If you could introduce yourself and give us a high-level summary of
Yeah, thank you, Gord. Drew Stevens, 3 Sherwood Lane. I'm the applicant. What I'm requesting is to expand, quote unquote, my minor home occupation for the nonprofit wildlife rescue that I run along with my wife to become a major home occupation so that we can employ a non-resident to help us out. We deal exclusively with wild turtles, native to the state. We're both licensed wildlife rehabilitators. We run our organization as a nonprofit public charity. Neither my wife nor I draw a paycheck. We do it, run the organization as volunteers. And so the ordinances require for having a non-resident employee that it become a major home occupation. I'm not proposing any expansion building-wise or any difference to the operations that we're currently doing under a minor home occupation. Only that we be allowed to employ somebody who does not live at the location. So we don't do any sales at the site. We just take in injured turtles. That service is free to the public. The public is also not allowed on site as a part of our state wildlife rehabilitation permits. So we're not a zoo, a viewing place to come look at turtles, anything like that. We strictly deal with wild turtles that are injured and get them back to where they came from once they're healed up. We don't have any commercial vehicles associated with our operation. Employee parking will be provided via our existing driveway. And all of the turtles that we receive are received at an agreed upon external location, so we don't have people coming to our house to receive those turtles for multiple reasons. One being that the turtles that we deal with are a poaching risk, and we don't want people coming to potentially try to poach turtles. And the second reason being that other colleagues that we know of in other states who deal with turtles and have their addresses publicly available and have people drop them off there will get turtles just dropped off without any context. And for us, getting turtles back to where they came from is just as important as rehabilitating the turtles ecologically, especially with I didn't mention we're the only rehabilitators in the state who are permitted to care for threatened and endangered species, including the critically endangered Blanding's turtle, box turtle, state threatened spotted turtles, and species of special concern wood turtles. And as I mentioned before, there aren't any other changes to our minor home occupation. I did send a waiver request for the having a whole site plan. Since we aren't doing anything different than where our house currently is, I didn't think that would provide the board with any extra information to make a decision on this case. I don't know if that was included in the packets, but I think it is. Okay, great. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So
if I can jump in real quick. As the applicant stated, this is a major home application, which is technically a site plan review application. So in thinking of it that way, we should treat it that way. Despite the sort of innocuous request of a single employee that doesn't live on site, I think we should do procedurally the things that we would normally do. One is vote to accept the application as completed, vote that is or isn't a DRI, and then vote to on the waiver request, which was for a full, the same thing we were just talking about the previous applicant, a full site survey. Seeing how this is there's no change to the physical site, it's just the addition of the employee, which is the threshold in our regulations that transitions it from a minor to a major. It would seem like that request is in line with previous approvals for waiver of site plans. So, site surveys, excuse me. So, vote to accept, DRI, waiver, and then deliberations on the whole thing. Deliberations on the application. Any questions, things like that. So I would start with the vote to accept.
Do you comment on completeness first, or you?
I didn't have any comments. I think I said that, the application appears to be complete. So I feel like it is a complete application, particularly with the waiver request having been, except, I did have it, so I did make a comment on the waiver. What?
Am I, on your second page of your review,
Yeah, what I do.
it looks like findings of fact and it says we already did it at the meeting?
Yeah, it was supposed to say recommended findings of facts, because I was filling in the sort of,
Good.
you know, add dates here.
I'm glad somebody said that.
I saw the same.
Oh, it seems a little premature.
Yeah, Judy called that out too when I sent it to him. So yeah, that, I have since changed how I write this stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, my apologies.
So right now, we're just looking for a motion to accept this as complete.
I'll make a motion to accept the application for 26-008 MHO.
And I'll second. If you were done, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I'm done,
Seconded.
unless you want more.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I think it was unanimous.
I guess I should have said as complete.
I'll make a motion then to accept this as a not a application of regional impact.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Okay. Any other comments from the planner?
No.
All right, excellent. I'm gonna open a public hearing at 9:01 and close at 9:01. So, there was no questions from the public. I think we maybe need to just talk about the two waiver requests.
Waivers, yep.
Yep.
I actually do have one question. Do you have enough parking for you, your wife, and the employee?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, that was it.
And I have, I have questions. Oh, go ahead, you go.
How many turtles?
Last year, we took in over 400 turtles.
Holy crap.
Where do they're in the house or are they out? You keep them outside?
During warmer months, some of the ambassadors that we have go outside, but they are mostly, almost all of them, in our clinic, in our basement.
What was that first number? How many turtles?
400 last year.
Wow.
Since we started in 2022, we've taken in over 800 turtles from New Hampshire. And all of them that get rehabilitated go back home, so.
How long just turtles stay there and
turtles
what do you do
poop,
for medical coverage or whatever? How do you fix them? What is
So
that something do you do?
The length of their stay really depends on the severity of their injuries. By far, most of the turtles that we get in are car strike victims, so shell repair is something that we do. As a part of our permits, we also have to have a veterinarian of record who is also located here in Nottingham. Mountain Brook Home Vet is our vet of record. So if we need surgeries done, anesthesia, that type of thing, we call upon her to help us with those. But by and large, we're doing all of the shell repair, medications, things like that ourselves with our training and experience. Some of the turtles that we have been with us for multiple years because their injuries are so grievous. We get turtles that have their internal organs hanging out, and in certain cases, we were able to rehabilitate them all the way back to being released back home.
Cool.
Last year, we had a Blandings turtle from Nottingham that came in to us in 2023 that had rear leg injuries and needed physical rehabilitation for a couple of years to regain the strength to those back legs, and was released back to their home in Nottingham in their wetlands last summer. So sometimes it takes a lot. It's a bit of a different beast than mammal rehab because they take a lot slower to heal. But we're the only ones in the state focusing specifically on turtles because they need the help. 4 out of our 7 species are listed by the state as being endangered with extinction.
Yeah. How do you go on vacation? Who covers what when you're?
At this point, we haven't been on vacation since 2023. It's kind of taken over our lives.
Is your employee also going to be a licensed wildlife rehabilitator?
They'll be a wildlife technician. We do work with others who want to become licensed wildlife rehabilitators, but they would have their own, space that they would do it, or they work with us in other aspects So the employee part is only for paid, you know, we do have volunteers who come and help us, do things as well. And part of our long-term goal is to get more turtle rehabilitators in the state, so it's not all just on us. It's a lot to take on.
And who takes care of that licensure requirement? Is that the state?
New Hampshire Fish and Game is the one who licenses us for rehabilitation, yeah.
And I'm assuming they do the normal sort of inspections and things as.
They're supposed to. We have never been inspected by Fish and Game, but we work very closely with the Fish and Game biologists, and they come over to, you know, help us with certain things and, you know, get opinions on stuff. So, you know, we have, you know, a level, they look to us as kind of the experts in turtle care, I would say. So they haven't ever come officially inspected us like our permits say that they will, but they're also incredibly understaffed, so it's not really a surprise that they haven't taken the time to do that.
You have on average 30 turtles at your house each month?
Right now we have 70 something.
70 something.
Yeah, we're in the awkward part of the year where we've gotten turtles in starting in early April, especially the warm parts of that month. But it's still too cold at night to release patients that we've had over winter with us. So we've got a bit more than it does fluctuate year to year. Yeah.
And then your turnover rate as fast as you can get them healthy and.
Yeah, we don't want them there any more than they want to be with us. So, you know, they're wild animals and deserve to be out in the wild.
Interesting. I know who to see when I find a turtle.
If you find an injured turtle, we're the ones for you.
Yeah, it happens. You see them all the time.
Yep.
You gotta call first. Do we have any questions or discussion about the waivers?
Well, I had just another question. When I'm looking at the home occupation thing and trying to go through make sure we're trying to fit all those so we have this legit and all that. What section are you under as far as permitted use? What are you feeling here?
What do you mean?
I mean, it's like manufacturer, professional office, service, beautician, I guess your service? Pet
Professional
groomer?
service.
Yeah, I would say professional service that doesn't charge anything.
This pet groomer is the closest one, so.
Yeah, turtles don't get groomed, but we do put them back together, so I guess that
Probably
kind of
shine them up a little bit, wipe some of the dirt off or something.
algae, yeah, sure.
So how much of, there's another one in here about allowable space, 25% of the gross floor area. How does that work out?
So the clinic space that we use for the turtles is in the finished part of our basement, which is about maybe 450 square feet. We have multi-level shelves in there and enclosures for each one of our turtles to stay there. This time of year it's tough space-wise, so you know we work with what we've got.
How big is your house?
1,970 square feet, not including the garage.
About the 25%.
Yeah, we're pretty much right at that.
And you had a metal building in your yard, is that part of the turtle thing? At one time?
I don't have a metal building. We have a storage container that's,
Storage
you know,
container? Is that part of the turtle thing?
non-permanent. It's just on like paving blocks. But that's not considered a permanent fixture.
Is that turtles?
Storage for things for turtles, yeah.
No.
Is that waiver?
To the waiver.
This is one employee.
I will.
Let's go.
I was sure would Lane have driveways?
No.
Yeah, I have.
Only house on it.
One motion can cover both waivers.
I will make a motion to accept both waivers as written.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
No, sorry, no.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. It is unanimous.
Skip asked if there were any other houses or driveways on Sherwood Lane, and our house is the only one on Sherwood Lane. No other driveways.
Do you ever have any turtles escape?
No. Well, snapping turtles like to try to get out of their enclosures, but we learned early on to put some extra coverings over them, so they're very adept climbers, more so than you'd imagine.
They can climb 9-foot chain link fences. no
Some
problem.
snapping turtles are pretty darn big too. What's the biggest turtle you'll see?
Biggest one we've gotten, 35 pounds, but they can get up to 50 pounds. They're quite large, but they're swamp puppies. They're very sweet once they get into rehab. I've been bitten, had more blood drawn by painted turtles than I have by snapping turtles by far. Absolutely, they're snapping, or painted turtles are finicky little dudes, yeah.
So, I do have some findings of fact, it might be a little overkill, but it is there. And, you can make it with a motion of approval with conditions, if there are any conditions. Doesn't sound like there are, but.
Want me to read those off? Read
I-
your findings of fact?
I can read them off and you can just, as read. The planning board finds the application to be complete and declared there to be no regional impact at its May 13, 2026 meeting. Planning board finds the subject parcels to be an existing residential dwelling with minor home occupation. The planning board finds that the applicant proposes to add a single employee to an existing home occupation per town regulations, and outside employee requires a change to a major home occupation. The planning board accepted public testimony at its May 13, 2026 meeting. And the planning board found that the approved application met the development controls set forth in the town zoning ordinance, specifically Article 4G, and the intent of the Nottingham Master Plan.
I will make a motion to accept this application with the conditions previously read off, and that we've made findings that it meets the home occupation standards for the town.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Carries.
All right, thanks.
Congratulations.
See you later.
Get up here and finish the
If we're
meeting.
still here, you're still here.
What's
that?
Nicely done.
So well done.
Oh, thanks.
All right.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Okay, now it is the time of the evening for public comment. It's 9:11. There's nobody from the public here wishing to speak. So I will also close the public comment at 9:11. Other business, I think Blair's got an update for us about case 23004, the residences at Fort Hill.
Right, so this is being built and pursued by Fernald. There was an email that was sent to us requesting an amendment to the plan because of a change to where some utilities were going. I spoke with Josh from CMA in looking at the plan, and together during the meeting, we realized they could shift it and not have to request the amendment. So it'll just be a field change that'll be captured in the as-bills. So if you had seen that email, know that they have changed what they're doing. It's no longer gonna require any type of easement or, a vote of the board to change the plans. They submitted final HOA documents based on Attorney General Office review, a couple minor changes. Drew had me send it over to your town council just to double check, and he said it was fine, and, there really isn't anything you can do with an AG change anyways, but, it is in place. So those are now, the board approved them prior with the understanding that the AG may fiddle with them. So those are approved, those are in good shape and finalized. The project is proceeding ahead, and I asked Josh for a little bit of an update, and his associated emailed me to provide an update on Frederick Lane. Maybe this is it. And the construction. You all have been asking, if are you gonna see updates and whatnot? So they sent me over something. Frederick Lane work that's completed, clearing and grubbing, stormwater control is installed, 6-inch HDPE perforated under drain installed, rain garden, underground electrical conduit, roadway subgrade and compaction testing completed. First 6-inch layer of bank run gravel road base placed. So they've got some base layers and some site shaping work done for the roadway and associated stormwater controls. They still have much to go, install outlet control structures, gravel wetland infiltration pond, head walls, riprap outlets, landscaping, paving and binder. So they still have a ways to go. I did ask for a high level like timeline. He said he'd get back.
Is that
to-
phase one layer or just the whole project?
That's phase one.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I think they did the 2 lots on the back and this is like the next 6,
Right.
not the big road.
That's right. They did 2 frontage lots on the backside, which is Fort Hill.
Yeah.
You know, one of those was going for like 1.2 million.
1.2 million, yep.
It's not even waterfront.
Affordable housing.
Affordable housing.
Nuts.
Not sure it's affordable for who, but.
Well, somebody will buy it.
So that's basically where we're at. Yeah, so phase one was the 2 lots. This is phase 2, it's Frederick Lane, and then they have the other one that they'll do down the road. And so, yeah, so that's where Frederick Lane is at. I did ask for I'm gonna see if he says anything. Likes to pave the road within the month with other site work to follow. So that didn't give me much. We can just ask me for an update in a couple months and I'll get you one. All right.
So what can you say about, just, I think it's great that we kind of know generally what's going on with these projects, because once we approve them, we never see them unless we drive over there. And like, I drove up Pawtucket Ridge one day, I'm like, wow. There were houses, and there's a lot of houses up there now, and so Pawtucket Ridge, is that that's been bonded, they're selling, closing, getting COs, the whole thing?
Yeah, so Pawtucket Ridge was bought by Chinburg and developed by them. They put a bond up front, unlike other ones. And they've been coming in and making requests to reduce it. I don't know where exactly that's at. I could maybe reach out to the TA to ask that. So I don't have an update on that one, but yes, there was.
The engineers are watching that
Oh, yeah.
and respond. Okay,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
So what about the other one?
DeBerto?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that like paved and base down? What's?
So he did put up, so if you recall, he received approval for the access through our town, through this town, into Barrington for the 2 lots.
Right.
But because he didn't meet the conditions, a letter was sent in September rescinding the approval. And that's how it sat. My understanding is that from the TA, is that he just put up bonds for both Lipizan Drive and Captain something or other way. So he has put up the bonds, and he has been told, he's been sent the letter again, and it quite clearly states at the bottom, you are welcome to come back and ask for the approval again, but it has to be treated like a new application in that you have to pay the fees and the mailings. So he knows what he needs to do. So that's where that one stands. I do understand through Tracy, there is a poor family that's in limbo because of those lots and all this, but you know, we can move as quickly as he moves. We respond pretty fast when something like this comes forward, but it hasn't yet. So that's where that one's at.
CMA's been over there and inspecting the road and the base and all that infrastructure.
Yep.
Good.
So that's it for updates on those things. There is a question about Gabig Road, but it's not specific to Gabig Road, so we can talk about it. Sorry, it is a little bit confusing. The person before the current owner made 4 units. He's been approved for 3. He wants to combine 2. He can't do that with the current orientation without adding, there's a doorway that comes from a 2nd floor unit down to the exterior wall. And then about 10 feet down that wall, there is another door which goes into the first floor unit. Interior wise, and Dale has confirmed this, there's no way to connect the two without doing an exterior bump out for a hallway that would run from one door to the other door. So it becomes, climate controlled interior space. In passing, I have heard this board talk about what it means to be an existing structure and expansion of footprint and such. So how do we view this? Like, there was no real discussion about it. Like, is it no expansion to add more units? Like, if someone takes a 1,500 square foot ranch and adds a 2-story,
To me, no change of the exterior footprint means no change of exterior footprint, period.
Interior or exterior?
Exterior.
Okay, exterior.
Yeah, do whatever you want inside your house. Rip all the walls out, I don't care. But to get that, he got that approval because the whole stipulation was he wasn't gonna change or put an addition on it.
That's the way I would look at it.
Yeah.
I think it was a conversion of an existing building is
Right.
what the, our ordinance says. But, so.
And it does say in the ordinance that there's no external changes.
I don't think so.
Does,
It just says existing structures.
And one of the problems that I feel exists with that kind of a deal is that when the codes change, sometimes you have to make external changes, but at least there's a reason for that you can somewhat understand.
Yeah.
But
well, you have to add potentially, I tend to look at this thing now, additional entries and doors. I mean, that's, I don't think that.
Doorways aren't changing the footprint of the building.
Right.
Adding a bump out so you have a more square footage that's climate controlled, that's 100% changing the shape of your building. Especially on top of that, it's climate controlled area. That's livable space.
if you have a 3-foot porch coming off of the entryway and you're required to have a 4-foot one, that's okay, but it's not.
My understanding is that, most of it was, the reason they dropped down to 4 was that they, from 4 to 3, was that the part of the, building, the basement level was below grade or partially below grade, and under building code, you need,
They dropped down to 3 out of good faith. They didn't have to. They dropped down in good faith, that's all.
Okay, I thought it was about
They were just meeting us in the middle.
egress and windows and living space and light and other building requirements.
No.
Did it on his own. May have been backed by that, but yeah, he did it on his own.
Well, there's supposed to be fire separation and lots of other. Certainly
All sorts.
a number of windows and so much light per room, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, on building.
Right, that's all, yeah, it's all the building inspector's purview. And they are gonna be made to do all that, but that doesn't change the footprint of the building.
So they can apply for a building permit to change the footprint of the building?
No. Not according to what we're saying right now. That's what the question is on the table. How are we interpreting this? It sounds like it's
So is it an
thumbs down.
additional entrance they're adding?
Nope.
They're just connecting it to be able to go from 4 units to 3.
To go from what was 4 units to 3.
Yeah.
And this talks about fire escapes, that's certainly in addition to a building.
Fire escapes aren't climate controlled area.
Right.
I don't see anything that says climate controlled area in our zoning ordinance.
It's a matter of what NFPA says, though.
It's a matter of interpretation of the regulations. It says existing structures. Does this group see what they're proposing as staying within the existing structure?
I think it's a dangerous thing to play with those words. I think that needs to stay strict, because people are gonna start dabbling with that.
I don't know what, I will tell Dale that the board doesn't see it that way, and I don't know what the solution is for him, but he'll figure it out.
Now, just out of curiosity, when we're talking about footprint of the building, Are we talking about everything touching the ground, or are we talking about looking at it straight down with the
Well,
overhangs and shit?
The way it looks at, when you go to pull a building permit and you have to do your plot plan,
Mhm.
they consider decks part of the, anything attached to the structure.
Right.
That's attached to the initial foundation footprint.
And the
Yeah,
question at hand
and
is
so
if-
like, in certain cases, you can have stairs that are not attached that don't count
They
as
do
part
that
of the
also, that's why a lot of people
structure. Yeah,
opt for those
Precast.
precast stairs, just throw
Yeah.
them there. You don't have to bolt it into your house.
Right, but the question at hand is, since our ordinances say existing structure, how we interpret existing structure to be. And it sounds like.
The same way the building
most of
inspector
us-
would expect me when I'm pulling a permit to build a deck.
Mhm.
You know, you're changing the footprint.
Okay,
Which
yeah,
would in theory trigger the site plan review, even if it's something very minor, but in
Well,
theory.
No, not from an interior perspective, it is. He loses 2 bedrooms if he does it from the inside. From the outside, he can keep what he has. That's where my understanding is the hang up here. So I will relay the message that he has to do it from the inside. There is no expansion.
He has to go through what?
He has to do it from the inside.
That is an option, right?
It is an option. I was told he loses 2 bedrooms.
By going through the inside?
Correct. So.
It would be good to kind of see what the plan, what we're really talking about, because it's.
But you're not.
Well,
I'm asking
we
you.
don't-
I'm asking you for
interpretation.
interpretation.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the interpretation has been made.
Has been laid
So,
down.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
anything else under that, Blair?
Under that one, no. The only other thing I would want to talk about real quick is a grant application that is going to be due June 16th from PREP, which is the Piscataqua Region Estuaries Partnership. It's the grant that funded the Natural Resources chapter that we're currently working on. One would be to discuss, what the board what the town would want to go for or make a request for. The other one would be, maybe a vote of this board authorizing Drew and myself to write a letter of support for the application on behalf of the planning board. So kind of 2 things.
At the Conservation Commission's meeting on Monday, they voted to support the PREP application, for the town, with the recommendations that PREP had for a grant project. And the Conservation Commission also committed $2,000 to that effort as well to supplement any grant funds that were awarded, of course, contingent on the grant being actually awarded. So there was heavy interest from the Conservation Commission to, keep applying for grant funds since we don't have a lot to work with in terms of doing those types of studies.
I will make the motion to appoint Drew and Blair to take care of that grant, writing whatever needs to be done.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
That sounds.
Hearing none, all in favor? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
I'll be back in 2 weeks for an interpretation of that.
Okay.
Until they do the minutes, if we try to read that, what
All
the
right.
hell did he say?
There were no
that
opposed, no abstain, right?
That includes a letter of support
Yes.
from this board?
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
He said that, I thought.
I did.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed it.
All right, select board, committee, staff, board member updates. Let's do this quick.
Okay.
Tracy, do we want to do something with the signing of those documents, or has that been taken care of?
Oh my God, yeah,
The
Yes,
Mylars
yes.
for Bassett, yeah.
I need.
Can you bring those
Yeah,
over?
you guys need to
Are
respond.
they even the right ones though?
No, Blair,
All right.
no, those are not planning board documents.
Thank you.
They are not. The previous submittal of that was never signed by any board. It was just a survey plan. And what this is the survey plan that changes the road that was Cove Road to,
Channel. I understand. The TA sent it to us. That's why I'm doing it. I don't have an
I
opinion.
know, because she didn't know what to do with it.
All right.
And Kevin thought we needed to sign it. But in reality, there's no planning board information on there. It indicates that the town voted to make the road and then.
We all
they-
thought that, and then we looked at him again, like, what are these?
So are
we
you
all-
guys gonna sign it?
I already signed it, cause I didn't look at it, and then he
No,
was like,
but-
why
no,
did you
no,
sign
no,
that? I'm
I-
like,
No,
"Yeah."
I mean select board, you guys.
Oh,
No.
Someone has to sign these plans.
Nobody has to sign these plans.
To record at the registry.
Correct.
The surveyor
It-
has to record it with the stamp.
Right, that's
And
it.
there's two things. It can either be signed by the planning board with a particular certification from the surveyor, or it can have the plan of land cert as required by 674-2. So,
And it does not include the subdivision that came before us on that plan.
No, I know what this is for. It's for the layout. It's not for the survey, or the subdivision.
Well, the layout should be the
Not even
select
the
board.
layout.
Road
It's not-
should be the select board.
The road is
and the
already
select
laid
board
out on
doesn't need
this.
to sign it.
So
It's just-
when he came before us the last time, I thought we had decided that we would sign
That's
that.
exactly what was
Because
decided.
we thought
And
they
so
were
I don't know
different.
why we're having this discussion again,
Well,
because we came to the conclusion that it didn't,
Subdivision.
we wouldn't be out anything by putting our signatures on it.
Right.
And it might help them, and if anything, it would just be neutral and do nothing.
but it
right.
says approved by
When
the
Skip
planning
leaves the
board.
room, Chris and Danny, can you sign it?
Okay.
But last time we had this whole
Didn't do
discussion.
anything with it.
We had a
Why would
whole
we sign
meeting on
it?
this to discuss this.
Okay, well, just sign it, it's no harm, no foul, just bring
Basically
him in.
autographing it, not signing it.
Yeah, bring him
Really?
in, sign it.
Exactly.
You're gonna sign your name to something you had nothing to do with. Why
It said
would you?
I thought it said the planning board approved it.
It says the planning board approved it, and it
Right,
has
so
nothing to do with it.
I'm still approving it. I approve it more.
All right, I'm sorry. I will not
Glenn just
sign.
resigned.
I'm tapping out.
Second,
Okay.
I've been awake since like 4 o'clock this morning.
the procedures meeting happened. Blair was there and Adam was there. I think it went pretty well to indicate that we need procedures.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a little shocked that Dale didn't lay one out there on the table for us to work on. But, so from that standpoint, it wasn't necessarily productive, but it certainly got people thinking about various things.
Will there be a follow-up with something to?
There will, but it's gonna be in a couple of months or something, no date set yet.
Gotcha.
I provided some updates of what map and lot numbers and the consistency, don't really care what it is, but the consistency of how we do map and lot numbers. I proposed a change to the subdivision regs. It's being researched, if you will, at the moment to see if it's valid and all that kind of stuff, so. People took actions, I think Blair took some actions, and we'll see what happens. How was that?
3 minutes are up.
Yeah, so
Nichols done.
the road agent was there, he was.
Yeah,
It
road
does not
agent
really
was there.
affect anyone, but-
Any updates, Chris?
Just a question of Blair about the master plan timing. Is there some sort of timing on that grant that we need to react to? And were you drafting the housing section and sending it off to people for review and discussion?
Yeah, there was a doodle poll sent by Dirk for
I
a
saw
next
that,
meeting.
just-
Yeah,
is
and
that-
that's when the update will come, but I'll be sending out materials to the committee members just to review, and then we'll talk about it at the meeting, yeah.
Before that, all right, because I haven't seen anything. I thought you were gonna.
No, I've been.
You said I'm rewriting this and I'm gonna
Nope.
send it, and I thought we'd see it somewhere.
Yeah, since the last meeting, I've been writing the whole chapter, and I started on the natural resources chapter.
And did you have like recommendations on the housing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we already, yeah, we discussed them, and then Kristen sent a bunch over, and then we had another meeting on them. So the housing action plan has been mostly signed off on by the subcommittee. In editing it, I added 2 additional ones because either combining a few from what Kristen had talked about.
There's something on it was like biodiverse housing. Like what is that? You know,
We
how
can
do
discuss that at
Yeah,
the
let's save it for
subcommittee meeting.
Yeah. So yes, you will be getting things to review, and then we will be having a meeting soon.
Anything else?
No.
Mr. Lichtenwalder?
I'm going to the New Hampshire Renaissance Fair this weekend, so
Only update from me is that May 2nd, a couple Saturdays ago, we had the BioBlitz and Wild Discovery Day, Blaisdell Memorial Library, Parks and Rec, all helped with the Conservation Commission to get that together. We had a number of community partners join us and started out kind of rainy, looking a little like, people might not show up, but after it started at 9, we had quite a good turnout. We were expecting maybe 50 to 75 people. That's what we were hoping for. And by the end of the day, when it wrapped up at 1 p.m., we had counted over 125 people who joined us to learn about Nottingham's natural resources and all the cool stuff we've got in town. That was held over at the Marston Farm Recreation Area. It was a fun day. Yeah, there were lots of kids there getting excited about all the different things that were going on. We had raptors and other wildlife that were presented on, and yeah.
So we are using that field,
It was a good time. Yeah. It was nice to have an event there, community-wide event. And so the library and I think Parks and Rec are planning on making that an annual event as well. So we'll be debriefing in a week or two and kind of figuring out how to make that keep going forward. That's it from me.
Owl poop.
Yes, owl pellet dissections all day, every day.
Yeah, there was some planning board members there too.
Yes, there was.
I got nothing.
I don't have anything either.
Is this the one where we said we're leaving some extra buffer on the side of the road or something? No.
All right, so we're not going to do any reviewing of the master plan, site plan regulations, or zoning ordinances because time does not permit.
I have an update. We didn't get this far. I will be on vacation for during the second board meeting in June next month. So I'm already asking around for my colleagues for someone to cover. They'll be fully briefed on whatever's still on our agenda, but just sort of letting you all know.
Tell them how fun it is here.
Yeah, exactly.
Only thing left on our agenda is to approve minutes. I would be fine tabling these unless you all have reviewed them and are good to approve them. What do we think? Do we want to go through the minutes real quick and approve them? Or-
Let's just plow through it, because it's gonna be pushing it on the,
Yeah.
I'm already burnt out, so might as well.
I'll make a motion. To
Right.
approve the minutes of April 22nd, as written.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
Second from Mr. Ryan. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. And I know I've just been doing it by the power of the chair, but,
Move to
I would
adjourn.
like a motion. Okay, we've got a motion. A second?
You
Second by Mr.
didn't
Sepp.
unrecuse yourself.
All right. All right, all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody.